Chapter 1241. Arbor thought for a moment and coughed lightly. For example, because his furnace often explodes, he needs to be near a water source to ensure his safety. Otherwise, if it burns up, he won't have anywhere to hide. Emolien, that what kind of weirdo is this? You mean, he originally planned to jump into the lake once his furnace explodes? Arbor nodded his head. Emolien couldn't help but laugh out loud. Reaching out, he pulled the little fellow over and fed her the warm tea. Forget it. Let's ignore those idle people. We finally managed to steal half a day of leisure time. Why don't you accompany your husband and have a good chat? HM? Darling Chow's little face was wooden. Swallowing half a mouthful of tea, she looked up at him. These few days, I've been very idle every day. Emolien's eyes brightened. Then how about I come to visit you every day? If I say no, can you not come? Emolien hurriedly shook his head. No, she couldn't be bothered with him. Arbor cast a glance at him. The two of them gently swam along with the lake water, talking about all sorts of things for who knows how long. He said that he would send her home after touring the lake for 2 hours, but in the end, he carried her for 4 hours. By the time he stealthily sent her back, the sky was already dark. Her little sister was sitting in her room with her little mouth pouted. Seeing her return, she didn't even glance at her. Liar. He said that he would be back in an hour, but in the end, he let her pretend for more than 4 hours. She was bored to death. When Arbor saw that his little sister was angry, he hurriedly took out a lot of pastries and snacks from his inner world and went over to coax her for a while. Foodies were very easy to coax. After a while, she couldn't maintain that stern face and was beaming with joy. Xiaolin happily ate the food she gave her. As she ate, she said, Elder Sisterly came to visit you today. Not long after you sneaked out. You almost let the cat out of the bag. Mother found out that you weren't in the room. Arbor stared blankly. Elder Sisterly? In her memory, there seemed to only be that. The third miss of Deputy Minister Li's family, Li Xiui? Yes, that's her. Luckily, she was quick-witted and realized that the person in the room was me and not you. She even helped me coax Mother away. Jolin tilted her little head and chuckled. Arbor nodded. What did she say? He said that he was here to see Big Sister and to thank you. The way he spoke was so strange that I couldn't understand him. Xiaolin puffed up her cheeks. She said she's getting married at the end of the month before my sister. Oh, she embroidered a handkerchief for Big Sister. She said it's a humble item, but her heart is sincere. She hopes Big Sister will like it. Jolin took out a small box and stuffed it into Arbor's hands. He blinked and said, I just opened it. It's beautifully embroidered. Arbor nodded and put away the box with his silk handkerchief. Sister, are you very familiar with Miss Li? Yes, she's not bad. She finally got rid of that lazy dog, the son of the great king, and married into a good family. All right, you can go back to the court to rest. Arbor raised her hand and rubbed her younger sister's head. After sending Xiaolin away, Arbor washed up and went to rest. In the next few days, when she had nothing to do, she would stay in the room to draw talismans and refine pills. Most of the time, she would be embroidering flowers. Yes, embroidering lotus flowers. That's right, she only knew how to embroider one type of flower. At first, Mother praised her for her talent, but 3 days later, seeing that she only knew how to embroider one lotus flower, Mother didn't say anything else. She leisurely welcomed her wedding ceremony. Chapter 1242. Early in the morning, after she finished bathing and changed her clothes, she quietly sat in the East Room and waited. The entire coming-of-age ceremony proceeded methodically under the auspices of her father and mother. Xiao Zhongbong and his wife had already welcomed the guests of honor into the venue. When the music started, they saw their daughter dressed in formal attire, walking over from afar. The husband and wife looked at each other, their eyes filled with emotion, but even more so with emotion that their daughter had already matured. The guests of honor who came to attend the coming-of-age ceremony were the family members of the entire Mo Kingdom capital's influential officials. Xiao Zhongbong cupped his fists and said some pleasantries before announcing the official start of his daughter Arbor's coming-of-age ceremony. After a round of greetings, 8th Princess Mou, who had volunteered to be Miss Xiao's assistant, was the first to walk out. She solemnly bowed to all the spectators. The eighth princess turned around, her eyes blinking at Arbor before she picked up a comb and combed her hair. Arbor surprisingly didn't have the slightest bit of impatience after performing a set of tedious etiquette. It wasn't until Madame Ren picked up the hairpin that Mo Lien had personally made that a slightly panicked announcement came from outside. Her Majesty the Queen has arrived. Her Majesty the Queen has arrived. Everyone was slightly startled, but since they were all madams and young misses who had seen the world, they stood up calmly and faced the entrance to bow in unison, loudly paying their respects to the Queen. Empress Zhao walked in from the front door while being escorted by people. She was wearing a wide-sleeved brocade gown and a multicolored phoenix coronet, looking awe-inspiring. "You may all rise," Empress Zhao said indifferently before walking up to Arbor. She carefully sized her up from head to toe before nodding slightly. She extended her right hand. An elderly nurse, Hua Xian, immediately stepped forward and opened the lid of a long jade box. She bowed and took out a purple jade hairpin, respectfully handing it to Empress Zhao. "This is the Heavenly Phoenix purple jade hairpin that Her Majesty the Empress Dowager used for her coming-of-age ceremony back then." Queen Zhao's fingers lightly brushed that hairpin as she smiled at Xiao Mu, and it was even personally crafted by the late king. When everyone heard this, they could not help but let out a series of gasps. This Heavenly Phoenix purple jade hairpin, heavens, they had heard of it before. It wasn't as simple as an accessory. It was something that could save one's life at a critical moment. It was said that it could withstand all attacks below the divine realm 3 times. And it was this Heavenly Phoenix purple jade hairpin that had indeed saved the Empress Dowager's life. Such a divine item that could save her life twice. The Empress Dowager actually bestowed it to the crown princess without blinking an eye. Just how much did he value this little crown princess? Xiao Zhongbong and his wife were slightly terrified. "This item is too precious. Your Majesty, my daughter." Empress Zhao raised her hand to stop the couple from speaking. She took the Heavenly Phoenix purple jade hairpin and slowly lifted her sleeve to fix the little fellow's crown. "Thank you, grandmother." "Thank you, mother." Arbor raised her head, her eyes brightening as she looked into the distance. Prince Mo was standing there with narrowed eyes, secretly peeking at his little wife. His Jojo had come of age. Crown Prince Mo only felt that his heart was pounding nonstop. At this time, his eyes had long blocked out all the people present. Only that slender figure entered his eyes and entered his heart. "Haha, I'm not late, right?" A laugh came from afar. Everyone looked strangely at that person. The Mu family's 7th master, Mu Jingrui, had actually come uninvited. When Xiao Zhongbong and Wei Ziqin saw this person, their expressions changed slightly. Wei Ziqin even grabbed Arbor's small hand tightly. Chapter 1243. Although Mu Jingrui's appearance appeared very strange, he did not interrupt the hairpin ceremony's proceedings. Instead, he chose a seat and sat down, looking at Arbor with a smile. Mu Jingrui's aura was powerful, and even a white-haired elderly man following behind him appeared to have an extremely high cultivation. The muscles on the elderly man's arms bulged as he stared at Arbor like an eagle. The duo's appearance instantly caused many people present to lower their heads and restrain their auras. This was the frightening aspect of an expert's aura. Mu Jingrui of the Divine Province represented the Divine Province's Talisman Patrician family. Compared to the Talisman Patrician family in the Mo Kingdom on Seacone Planet, the difference was like heaven and earth. Mu Jingrui's appearance only caused the atmosphere to turn solemn for a moment. Soon, the hairpin ceremony resumed, and everything proceeded smoothly until the ceremony was complete. Arbor and Prince Mo met each other's gazes from afar for a long time before they quickly left under their mother's gaze. When Arbor's astonished gaze flitted past Mu Jingrui, she was slightly puzzled, but she did not say anything and merely nodded at him aloofly. After she returned to her room, Xiao Yao walked up and said with a grin, "Miss, are you tired? Take off your clothes and rest for a bit." I'm not tired. Arbor shook her head aloofly and sat down by the window. She reflexively caressed the lustrous jade bracelet on her wrist that was hidden deep inside her sleeve. Morong-sun, I'm coming of age today. And you, where are you? Arbor's eyes dimmed, and she lowered her head, allowing Xiao Yao to swiftly remove the ornaments on her head and braid her hair into a simple braid. Madam, 2 calls came from outside the door. Wei Ziqin walked in and glanced at her with a bit of panic and unease. Jojo, what is it, Mom? Arbor put down the fine-toothed comb in her hand and looked at Wei Ziqin in confusion. Come with me. Wei Ziqin took her little hand and held it with a lot of strength. Seeing his mother's strange expression, Arbor stood up and comforted her. Mother, what's the matter? Don't ask. Come with me to your father's study. You'll know when you get there. Arbor was baffled. Seeing that his mother was hemming and hawing, he didn't ask any further. He changed into a set of plain clothes and followed her out to his father's study. As soon as she entered, she saw the Mu family's 7th master sitting on a round-backed chair in his father's study. When he saw her enter, he smiled at her. Although Qiao Mu had a faint, favorable impression of this 7th master Mu, who she had sparred with before. But now he had openly brought people to visit his father and sat in his father's study. On the other hand, his father was standing timidly to the side. Suddenly, Qiao Mu felt a bit of disgust towards him. What was this? The upper 3 provinces' special sense of superiority over the lower star domain? Just like the middle 6 prefectures, they could do whatever they wanted in the lower star field, and they could do whatever they wanted. That was why they could attack the Holy Water sect without hesitation, because they coveted the holy water. Because they had that kind of strength back then. Arbor's gaze chilled, and Mu Jingrui caught the subtle change in her expression in that instant. He couldn't help but be taken aback. HM, the little girl suddenly didn't like him. Why? Chapter 1244. At this time, Mo Lien, who hadn't gone far from the marquis of Duan's estate, looked at this uninvited guest who suddenly jumped onto the carriage with impatience in her eyes. Your Highness, it's him? Huifeng pursed his lips tightly as he glowered at the fat elder who abruptly jumped onto her Highness's carriage without any rules or etiquette. Mo Lien raised her hand to stop him from continuing and said indifferently, It's fine. You may withdraw first. Your Highness, do you really want to continue staying here? Second elder came to find me earlier, and I've already made things clear to him. I need at least another year before I can leave. Is there such a thing to be concerned about in the secular world of the lower star domain? The fat elder sighed and said, His Majesty is about to completely lose his patience. The fat elder glanced at him. Moreover, the sacred fire in your body is about to awaken. Even the ancient Emolian seal can't suppress the sacred fire's awakening. When the time comes, the seal will break and the sacred fire awakens, and the two will merge, directly restoring your cultivation to the God realm. The lower star domain simply can't tolerate you. Heavenly law also won't let you off. Right now, the reason you can move freely under heavenly law's nose is entirely because of the suppression of Mo Lien's seal on your body. The fat elder sighed and said, You're the one who inherited the most ancient lotus seal in the entire Mo clan. What are you still attached to in this secular world branch family of the lower star domain? Back then, if it weren't for the internal strife in the divine province and the political situation being shaken, His Majesty the Emperor would have. All right, that's enough. Mo Lien coldly interrupted third elder's words. I already made it very clear to second elder last time. I still need another year. During this year, I won't leave or go anywhere. The fat elder heaved a long sigh of relief. Oh, Your Highness, but the seal on your body will inevitably break on its own within 3 months. How long will you be willful for? Aren't you also well aware? When you comprehend the third layer of the Death Lotus seal, the breaking of the seal will be unstoppable. Even if you secretly suppress it with all your might, it's still useless. Emolian coldly turned her head to look at the fat elder in front of her. Third uncle, I can't go back. At least not now. You brat, you said you. The fat elder sighed with melancholy. He looked at him and shook his head. You're just as stubborn as your mother. The fat elder sighed again. He took out a small black pagoda the size of a palm from his pocket and threw it to the elder. Carry it with you. It can hide the God Realm aura that is about to be released from your body. The fat elder straightened his body and squatted in front of Yin, advising earnestly, I'm telling you, child, if heavenly law were to discover you, it would be a very troublesome matter. Uncle, that's right. The fat elder waved his hand and looked at the picturesque young child in front of him. He couldn't help but sigh worriedly. Look at you, child. Aza's experienced, you've trained your heart to be wild. If you marry a wife in the lower star domain, will your father admit it? Who needs him to admit it? Yin sneered. He doesn't need to intervene in my affairs, and I don't need his approval to marry a wife. Third elder was speechless when he heard this. He pointed a trembling finger at Yin and shook it. Father and son are both the same. Chapter 1245. Yin's thin lips were pursed into a straight line, her expression incomparably cold and hard. The fat elder shook his head and said, Although that little girl's talent is indeed not bad, this is far from enough. Your Highness's status is extremely honorable. Even the daughters of the first wives of the 6 major families of the Divine Prefecture with outstanding constitution and aptitude are not worthy of you. What's more, a little girl from the lower star region. Your Highness is playing with fire. Even if you marry her in the lower star region now, the Emperor of the Divine Prefecture will not recognize this marriage. Who knows? He might even vent his anger on the little girl. Yin's cold gaze suddenly fell on the fat elder. If that person dares to lay a hand on my Jojo, I will make Jojo lose a single strand of hair. I will overturn the entire Divine Prefecture. What's a small and lousy Divine Prefecture? If I, Jojo, like her, I will naturally offer her with both hands. The fat elder was stunned for a moment, then shook his finger at Yin and sighed. You're exactly the same as your father back then. No one would believe that you're not father and son. All right. I won't say more to you. Anyway, you know what you're doing. Once you're done, hurry back to the Divine Prefecture. If the Heavenly Tao opposes you, it's not a laughing matter. Previously, you stayed in the lower star region because your body was suppressed by the seal and the Divine Realm aura was not broken. Now things are different, child. Third uncle, I understand. All right. Don't blame me for being long-winded. I've already met your adoptive father and mentioned this to him. The fat elder was a little angry at the mention of this. You didn't see his constipated expression at that time. It was as if I was going to snatch his son away. He even took 3 steps back, as if he was about to stop breathing. Was it that exaggerated? This monarch of the branch family of the lower star region was too infuriating. He was entrusted to look after young Master Gu, and after 20 years, he actually wanted to seize the Emperor's son. What a strange person. Yin glanced at the fat elder with a slightly serious expression. You've gone to grandmother and mother. No. The fat elder glanced at him. I only look for your adoptive father. Sigh. I'll leave this matter to you. We'll have to leave sooner or later. Your Highness, since you were 3 years old, the Institute of Elders of the Divine Land has come to visit you through a special passage every year. You should have known that you would have to leave the lower star region sooner or later. Yin pursed her lips and remained silent. It hasn't been easy for the great emperor. Ever since your mother fell into a deep sleep, His Majesty has been under a lot of pressure. Didn't Wu Shuang say that he was about to marry a new wife? Isn't that woman about to move into Morning Sunlight Palace? Don't listen to that brat Wu Shuang's nonsense. The fat elder blew his beard and glared. His Majesty's feelings for your mother have not changed in the past 20 years. Sigh. Child, you have to believe me. The fat elder hurriedly said, You will know when you return. The fat elder raised his hand and patted Yin's hand. The little girls matter. I don't need him to care, Yin said angrily. He can't even control his own wife, and he dares to control me? The fat elder felt that if the emperor was here, he would probably raise his hand and strangle his son to death. Okay. The fat elder couldn't control him, so he simply waved his hand and said, "I will stay here for a while. If you need anything, you can find me in the courtyard." Chapter 1246. At the same time, in Xiao Zhongbang's study at the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate, Arbor's cold gaze flitted over 7th Master Mu and the white-haired elder. With a flick of his sleeves, he sat down in front of them. The white-haired elder behind 7th Master Mu knitted his brows and couldn't help but say angrily, "How dare you be so impudent and rude in front of 7th Master Mu?" Arbor's cold gaze swept over the elder without any warmth. "My time is limited. I'll give you 7 minutes." "You." The white-haired elder was enraged. Just as he was about to flare up, 7th Master Mu reached out to stop him. "Jojo." Mu Jingrui looked at her calmly and said, "I believe that with your intelligence, you should know the purpose of our visit today." "I don't know." Arbor's voice was strangely indifferent, mixed with a few traces of indifference. The white-haired elder was instantly enraged. "How can you not know?" He turned to glare at Xiao Zhongbang and Wei Ziqin. "Didn't we agree that day? On the day of the ceremony, we will tell her the truth." Wei Ziqin covered her face and choked out, "I don't know how to say it." Arbor's heart had long sunk to the bottom of the valley along with his mother's soft sobs. She didn't even dare to delve into the cause of this panic. She stood up and coldly ordered them to leave. "Since you're hemming and hawing and don't want to say it, then there's no need to. Chunning, see the guests out." Mu Jingrui stood up and sighed at her cold back. "Jojo, you've already guessed it, haven't you? Jojo, you have such great talisman talent, but have you never doubted your origins? The talisman lineage is passed down from generation to generation. It's very rare for someone not from my Mu family to have such outstanding talisman drawing talent." Arbor's back was facing Mu Jingrui and the white-haired elder. Her back was already completely stiff. "Your surname is Mu, and you're called Mu Qiao. You're a child of the Mu family of the Divine Province, Mu Qiao. My surname is Qiao. As long as my surname is Qiao, my surname will always be Qiao," Arbor said coldly before turning around to leave. The white-haired old man couldn't hold back his anger. He jumped up and said angrily, "You don't know what's good for you. If you weren't a member of the Mu family, do you think you would have such a good talent in drawing talismans? You're able to break through to become a high-level talisman master at such a young age? That's because you inherited your biological father's talisman talent. You." Arbor abruptly turned around. This was the first time Mu Jingrui had seen such a resolute and austere expression on the little girl's face. "My talent has never been related to your Mu clan." She knew very well that her talent in talismans came from the Golden Talisman Jade Tome. As for the Golden Talisman Jade Tome, although she didn't remember how it was stored in her sea of consciousness, she was absolutely certain that this matter had absolutely nothing to do with the Divine Prefecture's Mu clan. Mu Jingrui looked at her with a complicated expression. "Jojo, we can understand that you can't accept it right now, but that is indeed the case. You are the long-lost child of the Divine Prefecture's Mu clan." He took out a jade pendant with a red string hanging from his waist. "This is half a jade pendant. Your foster mother also keeps the other half. Together, it's enough to prove your identity." Arbor was expressionless. Her eyes, which were like a dry well without any ripples, stared coldly at Mu Jingrui. In that instant, he only felt his heart tremble and his entire body turn cold. This child was seriously too cold. Her gaze didn't seem like she was looking at a relative at all. It was clearly like she was looking at an enemy who spoke without thinking. Chapter 1247. "Then let me ask you, where's my birth mother?" Arbor asked coldly. Wei Ziqin's grip on Xiao Zhongbang's hand paused. Mu Jingrui was also taken aback and instantly shut up. After a while, he said, "Jojo, I can't tell you about your mother for the time being. There are some misunderstandings here that cannot be clearly explained in a few words." Mu Jingrui sighed. "I was entrusted by your grandfather to come find you. Jojo, you have to know that your grandfather has never given up on searching for you all these years." Arbor expressionlessly let out 2 chilling laughs. "Then let me ask you again, What if I go with you? What identity will I use to go back? Jojo, our Mu family has set up a spatial talisman matrix in a place in the Mo kingdom capital that connects the lower star domain and the divine province's Mu family. Only our Mu family can activate it. It can be transported once every 6 months, and no more than 5 people can be transported at a time. When the time comes, we can use this spatial talisman matrix to transport back. Arbor gazed icily at the man in front of him. That bone-chilling gaze made Mu Jingrui seem to see his sister-in-law through her in an instant. That cold, arrogant, and aloof woman whom he had respected for many years. But it was very clear that the little girl in front of him was even more heartless than his aloof and arrogant sister-in-law. She seemed to really not like the Mu family. Ridiculous. You want me to follow you back to your family with my tail between my legs like a stray dog? Arbor's expression did not change in the slightest when he read these words without any warmth. Why should I listen to you? Child, don't be unable to tell good from bad. The white-haired elder roared angrily. Arbor waved his hand, and a green vine burrowed out from his sleeve, lashing out at the elder's face without warning. So what if I'm unable to tell good from bad? Smack! Mu Jingrui's figure flashed and appeared in front of the elderly man. He reached out and firmly grabbed the vine whip, feeling a slight pain in his palm from the whip. Mu Jingrui's eyes widened. When he turned his head, he saw Arbor send out a wave of mystic energy towards the white-haired elder. Jojo, Mu Jingrui was shocked. The intensity of this profound energy was actually boom. The old man was hit head-on by the profound energy. Although he tried to defend himself, he was still knocked out of the study by Arbor's profound energy. He directly rolled down the stairs and fell rather tragically. You'd better not challenge my patience. Arbor's face was cold. You're already so old. Don't make yourself look bad. A level 14 mystic cultivator? While Mu Jingrui was shocked, great joy also surfaced in his eyes. This child actually leaped to become a level 14 mystic cultivator at such a young age. Her talisman talent was also not inferior to Stardust. It could be said that such a young genius with such achievements was clearly superior to the current eldest miss of their divine province's Mu family. What divine province's Mu family? It has nothing to do with me, Arbor said with an icy expression. He raised his hand and said, Chunning, see the guests out. Yes, Mississippi. Chunning hastily flashed in from outside and respectfully bowed to 7th Master Mu and Mu Jingrui. This way, please. The old man stood up with a face full of dirt and grime, his expression displeased. Simply preposterous. Chapter 1248. As a member of the Mu family, this little girl's talent was indeed pretty good, but her natural disposition was too arrogant and proud. Compared to their family's considerate, gentle, and generous eldest miss, she was simply too lacking. Jojo, Mu Jingrui was speechless. He simply didn't expect that Arbor would actually refuse to acknowledge them. Arbor turned around and swept his gaze over the two without the slightest warmth. Ask yourself honestly, if I wasn't a level 14 mystic cultivator, if I wasn't a high-level talisman practitioner, if I wasn't such a gifted little genius, would you still take me back? As he spoke, he sneered mockingly. Family also needs to pay attention to fate. Now, it seems that I'm not fated to be with the Mu family. Please, I won't see you out. You. The white-haired elder was furious. Do you know what kind of existence the divine province's Mu family represents? If you don't have the family's protection, you won't be able to go far in the future. Could it be that your sights are only limited to a tiny lower star domain? A mere Mo kingdom's crown princess. The white-haired elder furiously said, Do you know that if you return to the family with your talent and status, you can even take back your original engagement? You don't need to compromise and marry the crown prince of a tiny lower star domain. Old bye, Mu Jingrui coldly shouted. We'll discuss the engagement later. Right now, we're talking about bringing Xiao Qiao home. What bullshit engagement? I won't acknowledge it. If you dare to insult my Lien again, I'll turn you completely into a dead man. The little fellow's sudden outburst of coldness sent chills down people's spines. A frog at the bottom of a well. The white-haired elder was so angry that he panted heavily. Your original partner could have been the young master of Ming Province in the upper 3 provinces. Scram! Arbor threw a handful of poisonous sand over, directly blocking the elder's chattering mouth. Xiao Zhongbong and Wei Ziqin dazedly looked at their daughter. Chunying, what are you spacing out for? See the guests out. After saying this, he didn't spare Mu Jingruwei and the white-haired old man another glance before leaving the study with a flick of his sleeves, leaving behind the white-haired old man with a rather unsightly expression. Mu Jingruwei looked thoughtfully at Arbor's departing figure and didn't say anything for a long time. Wei Ziqin and Xiao Zhongbong looked at each other. After a long time, Wei Ziqin seemed to have been poked by something. She pulled her hand away and said hurriedly, I'm going to see my daughter. Wei Ziqin rushed to the door of the room in Arbor. She stopped and stood there in a daze for a long time. That was until Qiao Mu opened the door and met her eyes at the doorway. Wei Ziqin followed her in quietly and sat on the edge of the bed in Arbor. She looked at her and said softly, Jojo, you should calm down now. I've been very calm this whole time. Arbor said mildly, Do you blame Mom for keeping you in the dark? Wei Ziqin anxiously reached out to grab her little hand. Arbor's mind was actually in a mess. She was completely unprepared for today's incident. That Mu family's 7th master came to tell her that she wasn't a member of the Qiao family and that her surname was Mu. This was truly laughable. Jojo, I'm sorry. Mom, what do you have to be sorry about? Arbor turned to look at Wei Ziqin and said seriously, if not for Mom and Dad taking care of me all these years, I might have been long gone. Chapter 1249. No, you're not allowed to spout nonsense. Wei Ziqin's tears immediately flowed down, and she reached out to touch her daughter's face with trembling hands. Jojo, are you still willing to call me Mom? If you're my mom for a day, you'll be my mom forever. She had been on tenterhooks for a long time, but the haze was instantly lifted, and she saw the light. Jojo didn't blame her at all. Wei Ziqin covered her mouth with one hand and sobbed for a while. Arbor wrapped her arm around her shoulder and patted it lightly. Mom, just ignore the words of an idle person. Wei Ziqin shook her head. That person is your 7th uncle. As she spoke, she took out half of a jade pendant tied with a red string from her pocket. This is what your biological mother left for you. I'm giving it to you now. Arbor didn't take it, and her little hand even shrank back a little. Wei Ziqin was stunned, and she looked at her with tears rolling down her face. Jojo, you're not blaming her, are you? No. Arbor indifferently spat out these 2 words with an icy gaze. Although I only spent 2 to 3 months with your mother, I know that she loved you dearly. Wei Ziqin wiped her tears and said, she had just given birth to you, and her body was extremely weak. At that time, an enemy came looking for her. To protect you, she handed you over to me. Mom, Arbor interrupted her. Then tell me, who is my biological mother? Wei Ziqin suddenly stopped talking, and her expression also calmed down. She shook her head and said, I swore before Miss that I wouldn't tell her. Before Miss led the enemy away, she told me that your surname is Mu. But to be honest, Mom and your father have always lived in Kwoto Village with you, so we didn't know much about the outside world. It wasn't until we went to the capital and heard about the talisman aristocratic family, the Mu family, that we vaguely had some guesses. Jojo, do you blame Mom for not telling you? Arbor shook his head indifferently. Mother, my mind is in a mess right now. I don't want to say anything. Wei Ziqin grabbed her little hand and said anxiously, Child, don't blame your biological mother. She didn't want me to tell you because she wanted you to live peacefully and not be blinded by the hatred of the secular world. She doesn't want you to embark on a path that only lives for hatred. Arbor nodded obediently, but his expression was somewhat cold. I understand, Mother. No, you don't. Wei Ziqin's heart was about to break when she saw her indifferent expression. You can hate anyone in the Mu family, but your mother is the only exception. Arbor did not speak for a long time. Wei Ziqin saw that she looked a little tired, so she got up and wiped her tears. Then you should rest well. Mother. Mother! Then do you know that perhaps because of my biological mother, I've long been targeted by someone? Wei Ziqing's footsteps paused, and she froze in place. What do you mean? Arbor began to understand a little now that those things that happened in her previous life were really not some special coincidence. Her identity was special, and there was simply someone who didn't want her to return to the Mu family in the Divine Province. So since the age of 7, she had already been targeted. In a dark corner that you can't see, there's a pair of eyes that has always been staring at me, Arbor said with a cold expression. Before this, I couldn't figure it out. When did I ever offend someone from Shuntian Prefecture when I was 7? Until today, I finally understand. Chapter 1250. The identity of the Mu family's daughter has brought me disaster from the moment I was born. Arbor's eyes are extremely cold as she looks ahead, a sneer on the corner of her mouth. You didn't tell me anything and let me live my whole life in ignorance. My hatred from the moment I was born, I can't hide from it. Wei Ziqing stares at the child in front of her in a daze. When she talks about the Mu family, there's not the slightest bit of affection, but more of disgust. The disgust in her eyes is about to flow out. What a joke, a family that has never cared for her even a little bit. Why should she care about them? Even all the disasters in her past were caused by them. Mother, overprotection is actually a kind of harm. Arbor indifferently says, because a lot of times if we're not strong enough, then it's still the same as before. Even if we want to live the rest of our lives peacefully and smoothly, there might be someone who doesn't want us to live well. Jojo, did something happen that Mother doesn't know about? Arbor shakes her head and doesn't say anything else. After Wei Ziqing leaves with a trace of apprehension, Arbor has been sitting in front of the bronze mirror in a daze, looking at herself in the mirror. Her ears are constantly replaying the conversation with Wei Ziqing. Why is he so sure that I'm a member of the Mu family? You look 50% similar to your biological mother. Those who knew your mother would be able to recognize you at a glance. No matter who you are, Arbor looks at the faint image in the bronze mirror and coldly says, I will make you pay for this. It's enough to fool her for a lifetime. If anyone still wants to meddle in her life, no matter who it is, she will make them. Die. After sitting in a daze for a while, Arbor feels a slight headache, so she gets up and walks to the bedside. She hasn't been sleeping well. It seems that even when she's in a dream, it's very uncomfortable. However, when she opened her eyes and saw Mo Lian's enlarged smiling face, her mood inexplicably improved for some reason. Qiao Qiao, you're really lazy. You slept until late in the morning. He poked her little face with his finger and lifted her up from the bed. What happened? He reached out and rubbed her face. It's only been one night. You haven't seen me for so long that you're looking at me like that. Jojo himself did not know how adorable those eyes were. It was as if they were glued to his body and could not be pulled away. Arbor reached out and hooked his neck. Emolian, I didn't sleep well last night. She must have missed me. That guy shamelessly said this and carried her in front of the bronze mirror. Seeing that she was reaching for the Heavenly Phoenix violet jade hairpin, he hurriedly pushed her small hand away. He had spent so much time making a phoenix hairpin for Jojo's coming-of-age ceremony, but his grandfather had snatched it away from him. Just thinking about it made him unhappy. Mo Lian threw the hairpin into the brocade box. I'm not wearing this. Why not? Grandmother gave it to me. Mo Lian glanced at him angrily. You're not wearing it even if grandmother gave it to you. Well, the one I gave you. Jojo, why didn't you sleep well last night? Seeing Xiao Yao walk in, Arbor reaches out to pat Mo Lian. Prince Mo reluctantly put down the comb in his hand and handed it to Xiao Yao. Didn't you say that you missed you? Prince Mo's eyes lit up when he heard this. You really missed me. I'll tell you that I'm done for the day. If you don't, it means that I haven't finished yet. Chapter 1251. Arbor expressionlessly said, I was lying to you. Xiao Yao giggled. Crown Prince. Oh no, his darling was getting better at tricking people. Look at how formidable this little trick was, making his heart soar one moment and then drop to the bottom of the valley the next. His entire person and mood rose and fell with her, floating up and down. Ugh, his heart really hurt. Yin swayed and leaned to her side, saying, "Darling, let's not go to the lake today. How about we go hiking instead? I want to go out for tea with Miss Lee today." Who's Miss Lee? Was it more important than accompanying your husband? Yin's handsome face was sour as he gazed unhappily at his little wife. "Then I'll go with you." When Arbor heard this, she was immediately displeased. "We're having a gathering with close friends. What are you going to do? You're sitting there like a national treasure, and the girls can even whisper to each other." Being disdained by his wife like this, the crown prince was also displeased. He reached out to carry Arbor, who had finished combing her hair, and rubbed against her soft little body. "Go together, or climb the mountain with your husband. Choose one." Anyway, they were all people of the pugilistic world, so they didn't pay attention to things like male and female etiquette. Originally, their seacombe planet was more lenient towards mystic cultivators. Prince Imo made up his mind to follow his wife the whole way, leaving Arbor unsure whether to laugh or cry. This person was very vexing. "I even invited senior sister Liang and the 8th princess. Why are you joining the fun? This was a gathering for us girls." Prince Imo pursed his lips. "If you don't bring me, I'll tell Mom." Xiao Yao burst out laughing and quickly went out to prepare breakfast for the two darlings. Arbor rolled her eyes at her. "They don't bring husbands. Then have them bring all of them. What's there to talk about in a tea house? Why don't we go hiking in Fu Mountain and roast game together?" Arbor thought that hiking in such fine weather wasn't a bad idea, so she reluctantly nodded. "You're so annoying. Then go and contact them." She wasn't happy that she had to inform everyone. Prince Imo nodded happily and poked her little head with his finger. Okay. We'll leave in an hour." After saying that, he went out in high spirits and instructed people to take care of it. Arbor's gloomy mood from yesterday was swept away as he watched the crown prince roll out with lanterns and colored banners. He looked out of the window and muttered to himself, "Different situations call for different measures. There's no need to ruin your mood for some idle people." She glanced at the fair and tender little face in the bronze mirror, and her mood relaxed a little. She got up and walked out. At this time in her previous life, she was still frowning miserably day and night because she had yet to open her meridians. Compared to this, the current her was simply too blessed. In that case, what was there to complain about? Life went on, and she had to look forward. What was there to be afraid of? At most, she would just deal with whatever came her way. Jojo. As soon as she walked out of the courtyard, she saw Qiao Zhongbong and Wei Ziqin welcoming her. Father, mother. The little fellow greeted them in a crisp voice. Seeing that she was in a rather good mood, Wei Ziqin's heart relaxed a little. She hurried forward to hold her daughter's hand and said, "Little Imo told Mom that he's going to take you out to play later. This is good too. Go out and relax. Don't think too much. No matter what, your dad and Mom's Jojo, our precious daughter." Arbor nodded her little head. Chapter 1252. After His Highness the Crown Prince organized it, the original gathering of 4 sisters inexplicably turned into a 10-person outing in Fu Mountain. Besides inviting Miss Lee's fiancé, Pei Yidao, the young master of the Count of Jianan's estate, he even thoughtfully invited Miss Lee's sister-in-law, Pei Jia. It was best for sisters-in-law and sisters-in-law to get closer. It would be best if they didn't have time to steal his wife. His Highness also very considerately found companions for his 8th sister and senior sister Liang, who were single. They were the State Duke of Qing's estate's 2nd young master, Shi Guangyun, and the Royal Guard's commander, Hui Feng's 2nd brother, Hui Fan. The 4-person outing of the best friends became a 9-person outing. When the crown prince was about to set off, he ran into his 12th brother, who insisted on dragging the Song family's Song Xiaotai along. On Arbor's side, the little monk bawled and hugged her thigh the entire way. She had no choice but to drag the monk out with her. Our dear Xiao's son hadn't returned from the academy yet, so Xiao Lin and Xiao Yao went to visit their cousin, Pu Rulin. As a result, the group of 12 people encountered Duan Yu, Sido E, and Liu Yexin, who happened to meet on the way to Fu Mountain. What started out as 4 people drinking tea turned into a 15-person outing and barbecuing. The group sat together in an extremely spacious and luxurious carriage, drinking tea and chatting wittily along the way. Xiao Mu was speechless as she fiddled with the little monk in her hands. She pinched his small ears and rubbed his small face before teasing him. "We're going to eat barbecued meat. It's not like you can eat it. This little monk can eat vegetables and mushrooms. Who's going to roast mushrooms for you?" Arbor rolled her eyes. Liang Qingqing couldn't resist picking up the little monk. "Little junior sister, where did you pick up such an adorable little monk?" "He's too adorable." "Benefactress." The little monk wriggled his little arms and legs, trying his best to crawl back into Arbor's embrace. Liang Qingqing rubbed his cheeks, grinning from ear to ear. "This little fellow is too interesting." "How old are you, little monk?" "This little monk is 4.5 years old." "Ha ha ha! Look at that serious little face of yours. It's so fun." Liang Qingqing seemed to have found her favorite toy. She hugged the little monk and couldn't bear to part with him. The little monk, however, was very disgusted and kept throwing her hand away. He struggled with his little hands and legs, wanting to throw himself into Arbor's arms. Emolian was very happy when he saw this, and he cast an extremely friendly gaze at senior sister Liang. Then he drew close to his wifey and said with a smile, "Ciao ciao, when we arrive later." "Sister-in-law." Mo sure interrupted their conversation. Hence, Xiao Mu looked up in his direction. When they first met, this silly prince kept trying to get close to her and was almost thrown out of the carriage by his elder brother. "Big brother, why don't you let me talk to sister-in-law?" Mo said angrily. "What else do you have to say?" Mo Yin glanced at her brother with a hint of disdain. "That's all you've got? You're just thinking about Tao or what peach?" Arbor blinked. "Eldest sister-in-law." The mention of this poked at Mo's sore spot. He immediately pulled a long face and said, "Big brother is so mean. He's so petty that he won't even let me look at the Tao that you gave him." He wasn't like this in the past. Mo Yin pursed his lips and said to Arbor in a low voice, "Give him 2 peaches and stuff his mouth. He's been nagging about this peach for about 7 to 8 years. Chapter 12:53. Eldest brother, you're still mocking me. Mo huffed. Mo Lien helplessly glanced at him and shook her head. The youth was wearing a dark-colored, narrow-sleeved, short-collared robe today. His black hair was casually bundled up, making him appear to be in high spirits. His looks and talents were good, and he was also intelligent and sensible. It was just that he was still a little uncertain. It was no wonder that when she told Royal Father last night that she wanted to entrust the country to you, Royal Father revealed, and the sky is falling expression. She wished for nothing more than to hug his thigh and wail bitterly. In reality, although Yu was still young, some of his views and insights were quite profound. He was a good child. If he was slowly nurtured with time, he would definitely be a wise ruler of the country. 1 year's time was a little rushed, but it wasn't impossible to nurture this child. But now, it seemed that even 1 year's time was almost gone. Here, Arbor raised her hand and took out a plate of juicy peaches from her inner world, beckoning everyone to come up and take them. She had thrown some of these peaches into her inner world, but after some consumption, there weren't many left. Thinking of Paradise Planet that was still in a sealed state, Arbor felt somewhat melancholy. She also didn't know when her little Chio would wake up. She kind of missed those noisy little fellows. Eldest sister-in-law, it's so delicious. Song Shoutai turned around and nearly swallowed his own tongue when he saw the 12th prince's appearance. You rascal, is there a need to reveal an expression that looks like you're about to cry because it's delicious? Arbor also couldn't help but twitch her mouth. Seeing his pitiful appearance, her heart couldn't help but soften. She took out a few more peaches from her inner world and gifted them to him. Keep them well and eat slowly. Eldest sister-in-law, you are really like eldest sister-in-law. Mo Lien spread open her fingers and pushed away that fellow's face that was pouncing on her. Scram. Eldest brother, you're actually this kind of eldest brother. The entire carriage was laughing and giggling and the atmosphere was extremely good. The carriage turned onto the mountain path of Mount Fu. Because the carriage was too large, they alighted and planned to walk up the mountain. It was just past 7 in the morning, and the weather was clear and sunny with a gentle morning breeze. Everyone gazed at the distant green mountains, feeling extremely good for a moment. The MO capital's defensive fortifications could be considered the most perfect defensive fortifications on the entire Seacone planet. Currently, Southern Bailey, Northern Wei, and other countries were also building similar fortifications. If the corpse puppet situation could be controlled and slowly improved, everything would be perfect. Everyone walked up the mountain while talking and laughing. Not long after they left, several horses and carriages arrived at the foot of Fu Mountain. The vassal prince of Anan was dressed in crimson riding attire. He dismounted from his horse in high spirits and tossed the horsewhip in his hand to the manservant beside him. The girls walked down from the carriages one after another. They looked up at the hillside and whispered to each other, "Your Highness, you have a good idea. How can this flower appreciation festival be as interesting as a spring outing?" The one who spoke was a young man with a flattering smile. Everyone glanced at him in disdain, revealing mocking gazes. "Fifth young Master Zheng, has your Zheng family been doing well recently?" A fat young man smiled as he looked at the fifth young master of the Zheng family. As soon as he said this, a few people laughed. "Fisk, young Master Su's words aren't right. As the saying goes, even a rotten ship has a 3-inch nail, not to mention the dignified Zheng estate. It's impossible for it to collapse so easily." Fifth young Master Zheng's face flushed red. Chapter 1254. Thus, everyone followed suit and mocked him, causing his face to turn as red as a monkey's butt. Fatty Wu Xiaoen, couldn't stand it anymore, and he couldn't resist cursing, "You don't need to gossip about the Zheng estate. Let me tell you, sixth young master is my brother. No matter what, you shouldn't ridicule the Zheng estate's people out of consideration for sixth young master." When everyone heard this, they also recalled that Zheng family's young prodigy, sixth Zheng, and they couldn't help but shut their mouths in boredom. When the vassal prince of Anan saw this, he didn't say anything else. He turned to look at a young girl, standing gracefully among the young ladies, and said with a smile, "After you, Commandery Princess." Ian nodded and leisurely made her way up the mountain with small, light steps while maintaining her graceful and luxurious bearing. The vassal prince of Anan's eyes flickered, and he immediately walked up alongside her. He said with a smile, "If Commandery Princess feels tired, I can order people to carry you up in a small sedan." "Commandery Princess," Ian replied softly, "thank you for your concern, vassal prince. We are out for a walk. If we don't climb the mountain and rely on a sedan for everything, wouldn't it lose the meaning of a walk?" "Commandery Princess is right." The vassal prince of Anan chuckled and said with a nod, "Then let's go up. Supposedly, if we reach the summit before noon, we can see Fu Mountain's marvelous scenery under the red sun." "It is indeed so." Ian smiled faintly and said, "Fu Mountain's scenery has always been very good. If Vassal Prince is free, there is no harm in coming here for a walk." The two people led the way as they chatted and laughed. Behind them, 7 to 8 orioles and swallows jostled behind them, winking at each other in disdain. "Look at her, she looks so smug. If the Queen Dowager hadn't adopted her, how could she have her current glamorous and dignified appearance? Wouldn't she still have to curl up in the declining marquee of Su Anne's estate like a pitiful worm?" A noble lady couldn't stand Commandery Princess Anne's pretentious appearance and couldn't resist commenting sourly, oh my, isn't this the miss of the Liu family? Why are you so envious? This sour stench is truly overwhelming, and I can't even block it." The third miss of the Marquis of Placation's estate, Su Mingzhu, mocked. Third sister, Su Mingxin, the younger concubine-born sister, saw that she was going to stir up trouble again. With just a few words, the young miss of the Liu family was glaring at her angrily. Su Mingxin couldn't help but reach out and pull on her sleeve. Su Mingzhu angrily flung her fourth sister's hand away. "Am I wrong? What a joke! That was Commandery Princess Yin. the Queen Dowager's favorite. How could she not hug her thigh tightly? It was one thing for these idiots to offend Commandery Princess In, but they shouldn't let the Commandery Princess misunderstand that she, Su Mingzhu, was also picking on her and speaking ill of her behind her back. Miss Lu glared angrily at Su Mingzhu several times before turning her face away and ignoring her. The other young ladies were like stars surrounding the moon, hugging a veiled woman who raised her head and smiled fawningly. Feng Yin, didn't you say that second young master would come today? Second cousin brother has something urgent to deal with, young Feng Yin said proudly. However, when he glanced at those girls from the corner of his eyes, he couldn't help but feel cold and mocking. These idiots, how could they have the right to have a crush on her second cousin? After walking for about an hour, the group of people walked for a long time. Suddenly, they heard Commandery Princess In exclaim, and everyone looked over. They saw a large group of young men and women sitting in a circle on the small slope at the top of the mountain. When they saw them walking over, they also turned to look at them. Your Highness, what a coincidence! Chapter 1255. Commandery Princess In smiled excitedly. Heavens, could this be fate? The two people did not have any agreement, yet they met without any warning. What was this if not fate? Evidently, this hilarious Commandery Princess had completely treated the crowd around the Crown Prince as background scenery. It's His Highness. His Highness the Crown Prince is also here. Miss Lu, Su Mingzhu, and the other young ladies all looked over with flushed faces, as if they had seen something excited. The vassal prince of Anan laughed heartily and was the first to greet with cupped fists. Greetings to His Highness. Is His Highness bringing the Crown Princess on an outing? The 12th prince is also here. Brother Guangyun, everyone, sorry for the disrespect. Mo Lin reflexively swept him a glance before nodding dryly at him. Shi Guangyun and the rest stood up to greet and exchange pleasantries. During this time, darling Xiao, senior sister Liang, Duan Yu, and the rest did not even lift their butts as they sat there calmly and continued to eat. There was already quite a bit of roasted game on the plate, and several large pieces of rabbit meat were currently flipping on the grill. The aroma wafted over as oil sizzled out. After walking for an entire morning, it was already close to noon. The vassal prince of Anan's entourage was rumbling with hunger, so their eyes involuntarily focused on the food on the grill. It was too sumptuous. Other than roasted pork, beef, mutton, and so on, the Crown Prince's entourage had also prepared all kinds of fruits and vegetables. They really knew how to enjoy themselves. However, after waiting for so long, no one from the Crown Prince's entourage invited them to sit down and eat together. Was this appropriate? Shouldn't they play together and share their food when they met by chance on the mountain? Arbor discovered that a flock of orioles and swallows were staring at her with very strange gazes. How could she know that they were waiting for her to invite them? Among the women, her status was the noblest. As long as she invited them, the others definitely would not have any objections. 8th Princess, Mo, you was about to go crazy from holding back her laughter. According to her interactions with them, these people were probably going to die. Her little sister-in-law definitely did not think of inviting them at all, because they were not familiar with each other. The smile on Mo's face widened infinitely. Arbor's gaze swept across the group of women one by one. He raised his hand and gave the little monk a radish stick, stuffing it into his hand. He calmly took half a rabbit leg and said to Mo and the others, "Eat it while it's hot. Don't waste it. Benefactress, you can roast the mushrooms. It's delicious. Do you want some minced meat? I'll give you some minced meat roasted mushrooms. It smells good." Arbor winked at him. "No," the little monk angrily shouted. "This little monk is a vegetarian." Liang Qingqing saw that he was extremely cute and couldn't help but reach out to touch his little bald head. "Little monk, why don't you renounce asceticism?" "Nonsense." The small monk opened his small hands and forcefully pushed Liang Qingqing's palm away. Why would this little monk want to renounce asceticism? How can you marry a wife if you don't renounce asceticism? Liang Qingqing teased. Hurry up and renounce asceticism so that you can marry a wife when you grow up. When the little monk heard this, he looked up pensively. Before he could say, marry a benefactress, Emolien stuffed a radish stick into his mouth. Don't, you should continue being a monk. When the vassal prince of Nan and the others saw that they were completely ignoring them, they couldn't help but feel somewhat embarrassed. The commandery princess's eyes flickered. Just as she was about to step forward, a masked, gray-clothed man suddenly appeared in front of her and hacked at her with a saber. Be careful, commandery princess. Chapter 1256. However, the vassal prince of Anan, Cho Fu, strode forward and fiercely embraced commandery princess Anne's slender waist with his ape arms. He hugged her tightly and pulled her into his arms. This action was truly done in one go, and it was very manly. However, the two were not husband and wife after all, and they had never been engaged. This kind of overly intimate action appeared extremely strange in everyone's eyes. Many of the noble ladies covered their mouths with their hands in shock. Ian was also a bit alarmed and furious. She originally wanted to struggle, but the vassal prince of Anan's iron arms encircled her waist firmly, so she could not break free for a while. Amidst everyone's cries of shock, vassal prince Cho Fu swiftly struck the gray-clothed person's chest with his palm. The gray-clothed person did not even grunt, merely retreating a step after the vassal prince of Anan's palm strike. In the span of a breath, the person charged forward fearlessly, looking as if he was going to kill commandery princess in with a single strike. Ian's cultivation was not high to begin with, so she had yet to recover her wits from this sudden assassination. She reflexively shrunk into the vassal prince of Anan's embrace, her fair and petite hands clutching the lapels of his robes tightly. The gray-clothed person and his three subordinates had cornered the vassal prince of Anan inside their encirclement and attacked the vassal prince simultaneously. However, the vassal prince of divine courage hugged commandery princess Anne's waist with one hand as he moved back and forth inside the encirclement to fend off those people's attacks, occasionally swinging his sword in retaliation. Meanwhile, Arbor's group was standing far away from them. When the gray-clothed assassin swiftly appeared on the scene with several people, Arbor's group's first reaction was quite laughable. That was, they scrambled to put away the grill, plates, and meat, moving them back to prevent the dust from the fight from contaminating the food. That was why everyone was expressionless when they saw the vassal prince saving the damsel in distress. After moving the food and utensils to a safe distance, everyone sat down on the lawn and continued to drink tea and eat meat calmly. After the vassal prince of Anan stabbed that gray-clothed person with his backhand, the gray-clothed person quickly waved his hand and left swiftly with the assassins. Everything happened so quickly that it didn't even take 5 minutes to finish a cup of tea. Duan Yu shook his head speechlessly. Your acting is too fake. With this bunch of people's intelligence and their fake acting, they simply couldn't fool Duan Yu, Situ Yi, and the others. Prince Amo smiled and said, it's fine. Just treat it as an after-dinner entertainment. What entertainment? I don't understand. Liang Qingqing didn't have many tricks up her sleeve. She didn't know what these people were talking about. He only knew that the people in the imperial court were very calculative. Arbor creased his brows. After glancing at Ian and the vassal prince of Nan, he retracted his gaze and told Liang Qingqing, ignore them. A bunch of clowns. In order to win the beauty's favor, the vassal prince of Anan actually arranged such a baffling scene of a hero saving the beauty. It was really hard for people to have a good impression of him. On the other end, after the vassal prince of Anan soothed the frightened commandery princess in gently, the farce finally came to an abrupt end. The vassal prince of Anan volunteered to escort commandery princess Ian back to the palace. However, commandery princess Ian's gaze kept drifting toward Arbor's side, gazing at the crown prince in a daze through the crowd. Chapter 1257. However, it was a pity that no one in Arbor's group was paying attention to her. After they finished eating, they felt that they had rested enough, So they packed up their equipment and continued swimming deeper into Fu Mountain. When Ian saw that no one was asking her if she was injured or frightened, she couldn't help but feel aggrieved. Soon, the vassal prince of Anan used the excuse that the commandery princess had been frightened to cancel the activity and order everyone to return home. Meanwhile, he sent commandery princess In back to the palace as a matter of course. After the farce with the vassal prince of Anan ended, Arbor's group continued to stroll around merrily until the afternoon before dispersing. Arbor, who had not slept well the entire night, was a bit tired at this time. After getting on the carriage, she found a crown prince to use as a pillow. She had only wanted to close her eyes and take a nap, but she didn't expect that she would fall asleep soon after leaning against the crown prince. Mo Lien stroked the back of her head before taking out a thin brocade blanket to cover her stomach. The little monk was sprawled on the ground on his back. He had long fallen asleep from exhaustion after playing for the entire day. Mo Lien simply had the carriage driver stop the carriage by the roadside so that his Jojo could catch up on some sleep. Arbor slept for a full 2 hours before waking up. When she saw that her carriage was still at the foot of Fu Mountain, she couldn't help but be speechless. "You didn't leave. The carriage's swaying disturbed your sleep." Mo Lien brushed away the strands of hair that had drifted across her face. "I'll send you back now." Arbor nodded and yawned. When she turned around and saw the little monk sleeping soundly with his limbs spread out, she couldn't help but find it amusing. This little fellow had also tired himself out for the entire day, so she would just let him sleep a bit more. The carriage driver exhaled before driving the carriage away from Fu Mountain and into the city. Mo Lien took out the tea and snacks that he had prepared beforehand from the carriage compartment and fed his wifey for a while. Arbor seemed to have thought of something, and she couldn't help but ask curiously, "Mo Lien, why do you think that vassal prince of Anan did that? He wants to marry commandery princess Ian as his wife? He likes her?" Mo Lien couldn't help but laugh. What's there to like or dislike between them? At most, it's about benefits. The little guy curled his lips and was about to take a sip of tea when he suddenly felt the carriage stop. She almost spilled the tea that was about to reach her mouth. The crown prince's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He hurriedly grabbed her small hand and helped her stabilize her body. What happened? The coachman's driving skills were quite good. He wasn't usually so reckless, driving the carriage so bumpy. "Your Highness, yes." The coachman's tone was filled with surprise and helplessness. Arbor lifted the curtain and saw a carriage stopped in the middle of the busy street. The woman standing in front of the carriage with her hands on her hips and 4 or 5 palace guards behind her did look familiar. "Mo Lien, come and take a look. Who is this? He looks familiar." Arbor couldn't help but tug at his sleeve. Prince Mo moved his head to her side and looked outside. His face darkened almost instantly. Seeing his expression change instantly, Arbor couldn't help but ask curiously, "Who is this person?" Fourth Princess Mo Shuang. It was this woman who was blocking the middle of the road. She simply didn't care about the Wang clan's dignity at all and completely disgraced the Mo clan. Mo Lien was about to lift the curtain and alight from the carriage with a dark face. Chapter 1258. Mo Lien's handsome face darkened. Just as he was about to get off the carriage and berate her to stop, he heard the fourth princess, Mo Shuang, abruptly shout, "Do it!" For to 5 guards in the procession surged forward, trying to break through the carriage in the middle of the road. The passers-by hurriedly moved aside, all of them looking at that woman strangely. Arbor leaned against the carriage window, watching with great interest. From time to time, he would tug at Mo Lien's sleeve and ask, "Mo Lien, guess what's inside that carriage?" Prince Mo's expression already couldn't be any darker. He practically didn't need to guess to know what this fourth princess, Mo Shuang, was blindly excited about. There had to be a peerlessly handsome man inside this carriage. Otherwise, she wouldn't have spent so much effort blocking the road to rob someone and also trying to break the carriage, because the fourth princess, Mo Shuang, was completely uninterested in anything other than handsome men. Her greatest hobby in this life was to collect all kinds of handsome men. It would be best if she could bring all of them back to her princess residence to raise. if it weren't for the great king fiercely cutting her monthly allowance. This fellow reckoned that her princess residence would soon be unable to accommodate any handsome men. Everyone knew that this was definitely an oddity in the Mo kingdom capital. This princess's strange anecdotes could go on for 3 days and 2 nights without stopping. At this time, seeing that she had blocked a carriage and was in a deadlock with the other party, several commoners who recognized the princess all stopped in their tracks and looked over curiously. However, they were well aware that this princess's temperament wasn't very good, so they couldn't help but provoke this fellow. Everyone only silently hid in a corner to watch the show. Before long, they saw the carriage wall being pulled open with a bang, and a figure flew out with a whoosh. His feet tapped lightly on a stall, and he was already rapidly flying in Arbor's direction. Wow! The crowd of onlookers all revealed expressions of as expected of a handsome man, and swept disdainfully at the fourth princess, Mo Shuang. Heavens, sure enough, Princess Mo Shuang was snatching handsome men on the streets again. This temperament of hers probably wouldn't change even if she died. Arbor was leaning against the window of the carriage, watching the show. Suddenly, the carriage stopped in the middle of the road, was pulled apart, and a person flew out from it. She glanced around and couldn't help but be stunned. Wasn't this the Qin Estate's Grand Duke Zi Qin? Mo Lian is the Qin family's first Qin. I saw it. Mo Lian's handsome face was dark, and he was so angry that he didn't want to talk. He raised his hand and hugged Arbor. Dong! His carriage was kicked from the outside, and a figure rushed into the carriage in a panic. When he saw Arbor, his eyes suddenly lit up. The moment she opened her mouth, she screamed in panic, "Jojo, save me!" His figure flashed and pounced toward Arbor in the carriage. Scram! Prince Mo kicked out without hesitation, aiming for the man's face. Eldest Qin quickly dodged to the side, rolling and crawling into the carriage, hiding behind Arbor. "Jojo, save me!" Before Qiao Mu could speak, she heard the carriage driver's blood-curdling scream from outside. Then, the carriage curtains were forcefully torn apart, and a woman fiercely jumped into their carriage. She didn't even see who was inside the carriage before she angrily rebuked. "Where did this little witch come from? Get out of the way!" "Impudent!" Mo Lian was furious and coldly rebuked her. Fourth Princess Mo Shuang instinctively shuddered, but when she saw the crown prince sitting in the carriage, her pretty face instantly turned pale. Today was over. Sleep was over. Chapter 1259. Heavens, heavens! Why was the crown prince here? Mo Shuang covered her mouth with her hand and revealed a shocked expression. She then swept her gaze over Arbor and finally recognized him. "It's you!" That day, she had barged into her father's palace and begged him to grant her the eldest young master. At that time, her father had been imprisoned by the demon law in the main hall because of this damned crown princess. Sitting in her father's bedchamber and eating leisurely, Gong Chong, and didn't dare to offend her. Mo Shuang's scalp was about to explode. She finally understood that her brainless act of barging into the crown prince and crown princess's carriage. She wanted to cry, but had no tears. Usually, when she saw the crown prince, she would run as far away as she could. But she didn't dare to be impudent in front of this crown prince. If she offended the crown prince, her days would be even more difficult. Crown prince. Mo Shuang smiled embarrassedly and took a step back. She didn't dare to step forward again, but her eyes couldn't help but linger on the eldest young master, who was huddled in the corner. The eldest young master was meekly and weakly huddled in the corner of the carriage, hiding behind Arbor and biting his fingers. This young master is so scared. Look as he looked pitifully at Arbor. Arbor only glanced at him and couldn't help but turn his head back. The eldest young master was stunned and wondered in his heart. Just now, Mu Xiaobao's glance, did it have a hint of disdain? Arbor really does have a lot of disdain. A grown man was actually chased like a dog by this fourth princess Mo Shuang, who had no cultivation at all. It would be strange if she didn't despise him. Xiaobao. The eldest young master raised a lustrous claw and carefully tugged at the ribbon under Arbor's sleeve. Slap! Emol Yin slapped his hand away and hugged Arbor to her side. She glared at the eldest young master with a warning gaze. Get out of the carriage immediately. No, I won't go. This crazy woman is here. If I get out, I'll be captured by her. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going. Emol Yin looked at eldest young master's expression and wanted to slap him to death. What the hell was he pretending for? With his cultivation, how could he be so powerless when facing a woman with no cultivation in a place like the lower realms? No one would believe it. Little treasure, don't be noisy. Xiao Mu forcefully swung her hand, smacking the eldest young sir's head loudly. Emol Yin, eldest Qin, was speechless. In the next second, the little fellow raised his leg and kicked fourth princess Mo Shuang, who had changed her expression, out of the carriage. Eldest young master clapped and cheered excitedly behind her. Amazing, amazing. Little treasure, beat her, beat her. Arbor leaped out of the carriage. A pair of cold, electrifying eyes filled with pressure swept across the street. Those passers-by who were hiding in the corners to watch the show jumped in fright and hurriedly shrank their heads back into the corner. In less than 2 minutes, they heard banging sounds on the street, accompanied by fourth princess Mo Shuang's pig-like screams. Stop, 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 stop. Mo Shuang's guards were just about to make a move when the crown prince lifted the curtain and walked down from the carriage and glared at them. Who dares to make a move? Those guards immediately rolled on the ground in fright. Who would dare to care about the princess's life or death? They themselves were about to die from the crown prince's cold glare. Arbor sent a flying kick. Chapter 1260. Fourth Princess Mo Shuang screamed in horror, her eyes bulging out of their sockets. In the next second, the crown prince consort kicked the large plate in the face. It flew out with a whoosh and smashed fiercely into a nearby stall. With a loud bang, the auntie who was watching the commotion from under the stall was scared out of her wits, and she scrambled out from behind the stall. Turning back, the auntie looked at the fourth princess, who was sprawled on the ground, with fear in her eyes. Fuck, this is too tragic. Fourth princess's nose was bleeding profusely, and her eyes were swollen from that icy stoic little girl's slaps, looking like 2 walnuts hanging from her eye bags. She looked as wretched as one could imagine. Arbor pattered over to fourth princess Mo Shuang. The fourth princess was so frightened that she retreated backwards. Her eyes were filled with fear, and she subconsciously covered her face with her hands, shaking them and screaming, "Stop hitting me! Stop hitting me! Stop hitting me! Who's the little demoness?" Arbor shouted with a cold expression. Not to mention fourth princess Mo Shuang's stupefied expression. Even Emol Yin, who was walking over in the carriage, couldn't help but facepalm. Speak. Who is? Fourth princess swallowed her saliva while trembling. Looking at the little girl's stoic face, she replied wittily, me. Eldest young master leaned against the carriage with one leg slightly bent. He propped his chin on his hand and shook his head repeatedly with a sigh. So worrisome. After all this time, it turned out that little treasure, this child, had hit her because someone had called her little demoness. To think that he had naively thought that our dear little treasure had finally been enlightened and would fly into a rage over a handsome man. Arbor swept a glance at fourth princess. Why did you barge into someone else's carriage? Mimi. Fourth princess looked at the little girl, stupefied. Speak. Arbor shouted angrily. The audience. Why do they have the urge to laugh? Do they even need to freaking speak? How bad was this little girl's eyesight to not see that fourth princess had charged into her family's carriage to capture the handsome eldest young master of the Qin estate? Robbing people in broad daylight. Do I look like I'm that easy to rob? Arbor raised his foot and pretended to kick him. The fourth princess hurriedly moved her buttocks backward, brushing against the ground as she stepped back. She stretched out her hands and waved them repeatedly. I wouldn't dare, I wouldn't dare. Don't hit me, I wouldn't dare. I won't rob again. Prince Mo didn't say anything and just laughed to the side. Eldest young Sir Cheen jumped off the carriage and walked towards Arbor with a slightly melancholic expression. How blind must this lass be to think that the fourth princess riding the carriage was a robbery? Arbor turned around and glared at him. Let's go. Eldest young master was speechless. Feeling wronged, the eldest young master pitifully looked at Arbor and said, Xiao Bao, we've been together for many days. Can't you treat me a little better? Nonsense. Who is Xiao Bao? Arbor's little face was cold as he said to the eldest son expressionlessly, I don't even know what you're talking about. Eldest young Sir Cheen. Oh my, this damn lass. She was still trying to deceive him at this point. Now, even that dumb woman Yang Fengyan knew that she was the Mu Xiao Bao who had previously snuck into their Qin estate. This little fellow was so stubborn. Arbor swept a glance at him before turning to trot to the crown prince's side. I want to eat small wontons. Chapter 1261. Okay. The crown prince nodded with a grin. He pulled her small hand and said, I'll make it for you to eat when we get back. I want shrimp stuffing. The little fellow raised her head slightly and made a request. The crown prince nodded with a smile. Okay. Watching the two leave hand in hand, the eldest young Sir narrowed his eyes. He swept a glance at the fourth princess, who was stammering as someone helped her up before concealing himself into a side alley with a flash. Young sir, a shadow guard in black bowed to him. How is it? Shantian Prefecture's strongholds within the Mo Kingdom capital have all been uprooted. That person said in a low voice. That person has begun to secretly make a move against Ani Prefecture again. I'm afraid that it won't be long before all of the 6 prefectures' forces disappear from Mo Kingdom. The eldest young sir chuckled. Just watch. It has nothing to do with us. Lu Yizhi is dead, and even that good second brother of mine turned a deaf ear to it. Why should I meddle in other people's business? He's the future patriarch of the Qin estate. He's the one who has to worry about and control the overall situation. The eldest young sir's lips curved in a grin. He then waved his hand and said, Go back. No need to come find me again in the near future. Yes. That person vanished without a trace in a flash. Eldest Qin chuckled and walked back to the Qin estate. After today's ruckus, that brainless princess probably wouldn't dare to come find him for a while. He was so annoying to this fourth princess recently. How could there be such a shameless woman who didn't know her own worth in this world? Why didn't she look in the mirror and see her own virtue? Although he was amorous and loved all the flowers and plants in the world, he couldn't nibble on just any flower and plant. Sigh, when he thought of that wild and untamed little flower among the flowers, the eldest young sir's eyes couldn't help but narrow. Oh, it was indeed very worrying. Not long after the eldest young sir's figure disappeared, Wang Chung appeared in that small alley. He frowned slightly before disappearing. The second young sir had him follow the eldest young sir, but he didn't find anything suspicious about the eldest young sir even after watching for a long time. In any case, they were all members of the same estate. Presumably, the eldest young sir wouldn't do anything detrimental to the Qin estate. In the evening, in a tea house in the Mo Kingdom capital, 2 beautiful girls were sitting in a private room on the 2nd floor. The waiter who served the tea could not help but sneak a few glances before packing up the tea tray and walking out. I asked Miss Xian out today because I wanted to talk to you about the matter of those 20,000 mystic currency. Commandery Princess Ian smiled rather embarrassedly. I'm not afraid that Miss Xian will laugh at me. Last time, in order to buy that life-prolonging pill, I practically emptied out all my savings. I had originally planned to gather the money from Miss Xian in the next 2 days, but from the looks of it now, I really can't. As Commandery Princess Ian said this, she looked a bit embarrassed. Xian giggled and raised her fan to cover her small mouth. Miss Xuan, aren't you treating me as an outsider by saying that? Since we're all friends, I don't care about that little bit of money. Commandery Princess Ian's eyes involuntarily brightened, and she quickly said with a smile, How can I accept this? Deep down, she really hoped that this Miss Xian would waive her loan of 20,000 mystic currency, but she was too ashamed to say this. Hence, She asked her out and waited for her to waive the loan. Now that she saw Miss Xin being so tactful, Commandery Princess In was secretly happy, but she didn't show it on her face. Chapter 1262. Xiuyin is definitely going to befriend Miss Xin. Commandery Princess In raised her teacup and smiled at Xin Yuer. Let me toast Miss Xin with tea in place of wine. The two people drank several cups of tea with ulterior motives. It was not until an hour later that Xin Yu stood up to leave. After exiting the tea house, Bao Yin couldn't resist looking back and pursing her lips as she mocked. What Commandery Princess In? She can't even return 20,000 mystic currency. Does she think that other people don't know her identity? Young master, why must you get close to this woman? You talk too much. Xin Yu swept Bao Yin a cold glance. I told you not to follow me, yet you insisted on following me. I have my own matters to attend to. Bao Yin couldn't help but get anxious. You aren't still thinking about that stoic-faced crown princess, right? Last time, we almost couldn't even leave the Mo kingdom capital. What do you know? After saying this, Xin Yu didn't say anything else and walked towards the tavern with a wave of her hand. He wanted to stay here and find a chance to talk to Lil Blockhead. He wasn't resigned to it. As for Commandery Princess In, she was in an excellent mood after leaving the tea house. She strolled the streets with Su planning to stroll around for a while before returning to the palace. As the saying went, one was free from debt. She had just dumped her 20,000 mystic currency debt, so she planned to go to a jewelry store she was familiar with nearby to pick out a first-rate piece of jewelry for herself to celebrate. Su also appeared extremely happy as she walked beside her. At least that Miss Xin is tactful. It is her great fortune to be able to befriend someone as honorable as Commandery Princess with a mere 20,000 mystic currency. Commandery Princess is peerlessly talented, humble, and gentle. She had begged for 8 lifetimes to be able to befriend Commandery Princess. Commandery Princess In pursed her lips as she walked with a smile. Su had a glib tongue, so as long as she didn't say anything out of line, Ian liked her very much. All of a sudden, Ian stopped in her tracks as her gaze fell on the 2 women who were walking towards her. His originally good mood was suddenly replaced by anger in his heart. Her smile also froze on her face. One of the women walking towards her was wearing a hairpin that was exactly the same as hers, and the style of her clothes was also similar to hers. The yellow mattress matched with the pink skirt. However, the other party's skirt looked slightly more exquisite than hers. There was a group of colorful butterflies embroidered on the hem of the skirt. When she walked, the skirt fluttered and the butterflies danced. It was a beautiful sight. Ian's fury involuntarily erupted from the bottom of her heart. Seeing this, Su hurriedly turned around and secretly gave the 2 hidden shadow guards a look. Very quickly, the 2 shadow guards caught up with the 2 ladies. After turning a corner, they stopped them in an alley. Ian slowly walked into that alley with Su, sizing up that young lady who was dressed similarly to her. The more she looked, the more fury in her heart flared up. That woman's appearance was unremarkable. Her eyes were also very small, and her facial features were not even 1/10 of Ian's beauty. At this time, the 2 young ladies that had been stopped by the hidden guards were hugging their heads and curling up into a ball as they gazed at Ian's party with trepidation. Miss, what business do you have? Bao Yin walked up and slapped the butterfly skirt girl's face. Audacious. You actually intend to impersonate our Commandery Princess? What? The butterfly skirt girl was stupefied at once. She simply couldn't understand why this Commandery Princess in front of her had stopped her. Chapter 1263. According to the little girl's words, it was because her clothes were similar to this Commandery Princess's? But could she be blamed for this? How could she have known that she would get into a conflict with an inexplicable person because of these clothes and this piece of jewelry when she went out today? You're crazy. The other girl next to the girl in the butterfly skirt glared at Commandery Princess In. In was infuriated, and she slowly walked up to her with narrowed eyes. She raised her sleeve and slapped the girl ruthlessly. How can you insult me The dignified commandery princess, Ian. That girl was knocked to the ground by this ruthless slap. She shrieked and was about to retaliate when a hidden guard subdued her with a wave of his hand. No, don't. What do you want to do? You can't be so unreasonable. You can't. The girl in the butterfly skirt looked at commandery princess in terror, but she was subdued by another hidden guard just as she was about to step forward. Someone come quickly. Help me. What the hell? How can there be such an unreasonable person in this world? The girl in the butterfly skirt shrieked as she struggled. Commandery princess gazed at her coldly as an excited glint surfaced in her eyes. Hold him down. No, don't. Don't. The girl in the butterfly skirt looked in horror at the small knife in commandery princess Anne's palm as she shook her head repeatedly while crying. Anne revealed a sinister smile as she stepped forward and suddenly slashed at that girl's face with the knife. The two girls screamed in pain from the depths of the small alley. Anne continued to wear a gentle smile as she disfigured that girl's face with the knife. As she slashed, she recalled her childhood. She was like a pitiful little bug, huddling in a flock of orioles and swallows as she was kicked and beaten. She seemed to see the Marchioness of Suan's youngest daughter again, standing in front of her with her head held high and declaring, "Go, strip this damn girl of her clothes. She really is a little bitch that is unwilling to be left out. She even dared to secretly wear my old clothes and have delusions of showing her face in front of cousin. Strip her, beat her to death. Who wants to wear your old clothes? Who wants to wear them? Who's Shuin, where in the future will definitely be one of kind in this world. Bitch. Ian's expression was a bit crazed as she slashed the girl in the butterfly skirt's face until that face turned into a bloody mess. Afterwards, she started laughing merrily. Remember not to dress like me in the future. Commandery princess Ian patted the unconscious girl in the butterfly skirt with her small, bloody hand. The youngest daughter of the Marquis of Suan, so what if she was honorable? Now he was still lying in bed like a living dead for years. She gouged out the woman's eyes, pulled out her tongue, broke the tendons in her arms and legs, but did not let her die. See, what a kind person she was. Anyone who went against her would not have a good ending. Princess, the two of them have fainted. Suer's beautiful little face revealed a hint of viciousness and a sinister smile at this moment. Break their limbs, cut off their tongues, strip them naked, and throw them into the nearby brothel. This is just a small punishment for talking back to me without any regard for seniority. Ian said this with a gentle expression. Afterwards, she turned around and left the alley, abandoning the two girls that she did not know as if they were trash. Very quickly, the two tragic passers-by were taken away by the secret guards. Chapter 1264. No one knew that such an inconceivable thing had happened in this alley just now. After Anne exited the alley, she put on her modest and kind commandery princess mask and boarded her carriage, returning to the palace in a good mood. It's been a long time since I went back to the Marquis of Suan's estate to visit my paralyzed younger sister. Commandery princess, Ian said with a smile. Sir, find a day to go back to the estate and visit her. Sue immediately nodded in understanding and responded with a smile. The carriage followed the spacious limestone path to the palace gates. When the guard saw that it was Commandery Princess Ian's carriage, they immediately let her in. Commandery Princess Ian lifted the curtain and nodded at the guards with a smile. When the carriage stepped onto the palace path and slowly headed for the Queen Dowager's Longevity Palace, Commandery Princess Ian glanced in the direction of the Eastern Palace and thought, one day, I will become the most honorable woman in Northern Imo. I won't have to live at the whims of others anymore. After the coming-of-age ceremony, the Qiao estate started preparing for second uncle's wedding. During this period of time, Wei Ziqin was as busy as a spinning top. In order to get second uncle out of singlehood as soon as possible, the entire family was really pouring in all their energy. In addition, after second uncle's wedding, the crown prince's wedding was just around the corner, so the entire Qiao estate was in high spirits. It was as if all the servants and maidservants had been injected with chicken's blood as they busied themselves all day tidying up here and there, inside and out. This maid arbor, this idler, appeared to be an eyesore in the afternoon. Darling Xiao was sitting in her small courtyard, drinking tea and eating dried fruits while also flipping through medical books and dozing off. Then she heard from outside that Madame Rin had come. Madame Rin naturally came to find her mother, so it had nothing to do with her. Arbor flipped through the medical books for a while before tossing them to the side, planning to take an afternoon nap under the faint sunlight. Everyone in the room was busy, yet she was the only one who was idle enough to count mosquitoes. Arbor had just closed her eyes when she heard the sound of footsteps coming from the lounge chair. A maidservant hurried over and bowed, saying, "The Crown Princess, the Miss of the Count of Jian'an's estate, has come to visit." Arbor sat up and nodded. "Oh, it's Miss Pei. Invite her in." Soon, the young Miss of the Count of Jian'an's mansion, Pei Jia, was led over with a personal maidservant. The girl looked to be about 17 years old and was a little shy by nature. When she saw Qiao Mu, she smiled timidly. "Greetings to the Crown Prince Consort. Last time, after receiving the Crown Prince Consort's hospitality at Fu Mountain, Mother instructed me to come forward to return the greeting." The maidservant behind her hurriedly stepped forward and tugged at her sleeve. She was speechless in her heart. She was a foolish young miss. How could she say such a thing? As Pei Jia spoke, she felt that there was something wrong with her words. Why did she feel like she was being forced by her mother to return the courtesy? She then looked at Arbor apologetically. "I'm sorry, Crown Princess. Pei Jia is clumsy and doesn't know how to speak." Arbor glanced at her and patted the stool beside him. "Sit." Arbor had already noticed that during the gathering at Fu Mountain that day, Miss Pei was a little shy and sat in the crowd, like a little transparent. If it weren't for Mou and Liang Qingqing teasing her from time to time, she probably wouldn't be able to talk to anyone for the entire day. Her elder brother, Pei Yidao, was also a man of few words, but he seemed to be a considerate person to Miss Li. The Countess of Jian was a fortunate person. Arbor nodded. Seeing that Miss Pei's gaze was fixed on a medical book beside her, he asked, "Do you want to read it?" Chapter 1265. Miss Pei looked a little excited. Can I? Crown Princess." Xiao Mu handed her the medical book with one hand. Miss Pei held it like it was a treasure and flipped through it page by page right in front of Arbor. She looked as if she was intoxicated by it. The servant girl behind her was anxious to death because of her dazed miss. She wanted to reach out her sleeve to tug at her miss. Arbor waved his hand at her. Let her read. She could take a nap. These two oddballs. One of them came as a guest, but after exchanging 3 sentences with the host, she started flipping through the medical book and ignored everyone else. The other seduced the guest with the book, then left the guest alone to take a nap. When Xiao Yao came over, she almost laughed out loud. After changing the cups of hot tea for the 2 young ladies, he waved his hand and instructed the servants to bring the little servant girl beside Miss Pei, who wanted to cry but had no tears, away to rest for a while. The afternoon sun shone lazily. The trees cast mottled shadows and the atmosphere was tranquil. When the servants, who were on stimulants, passed by this quiet courtyard, they couldn't help but slow down their footsteps and lower their voices. Of the 2 girls, one was asleep with a small blanket on her stomach, while the other had her head lowered. She was happily holding a medical book, engrossed in it. When Crown Prince Mo came over, this was the scene he saw, and his lips involuntarily curled into a faint smile. His baby was so adorable no matter what she did. Even when she was sleeping quietly under the big tree, she still looked so beautiful. "Your Highness." Xiao Yao, who had come over upon hearing the commotion, was about to salute when Crown Prince Mo waved his hand to stop her. "How long has the Crown Princess been asleep?" "It's been more than half an hour." Prince Mo smiled. "Then let her sleep a little longer. I'll go talk to father-in-law first." Yes. Not long after Prince Mo left, the little person sleeping there seemed to have sensed something. Her body moved slightly, and she opened a pair of slightly dazed eyes. Xiao Yao pursed her lips and smiled. She hurriedly ran over to her and said, "Miss, you're awake. Did Mo Lin come by just now?" Arbor turned his little face and glanced at Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao's eyes lit up. She nodded and said, Miss, you are so amazing. His Highness the Crown Prince just came by. Seeing that you were still asleep, he went to chat with Master. Oh. Arbor turned his head and saw that Miss Pei was still in the same position as an hour ago, reading the medical book with great interest. He couldn't help but feel speechless. She watched me for as long as I slept? Yes. Xiao Yao giggled and said softly, the tea has been changed twice. Miss Pei was so focused that she didn't even take a sip. The conversation between the master and servant finally attracted the attention of Miss Calligraphy Addict. She hurriedly put down the book, blushing shyly as she looked at Arbor apologetically, and said, I am sorry, Crown Princess. I was so engrossed in a medical book that I forgot that I came here to thank you. Ah, Bai Wei, the pastries we brought? Where's Bai Wei? Xiao Yao couldn't help but laugh out loud. Miss Pei, don't worry. We brought that girl to her room to rest for a while. I'm so sorry. Pei Jiao blushed and looked at Arbor. Although her little face was expressionless, her expression was calm, and she didn't seem unhappy at all. Pei Jia's heart settled slightly. Crown Princess, I get easily engrossed in books. Chapter 1266. It wasn't my intention to neglect you, Pei Jia said cautiously. At this time, that little girl, Bai Wei, was also brought over. She looked at her young miss with a speechless expression. Madame had repeatedly exhorted her young miss to remember to talk more when she went to other people's homes. In the end, her young miss flipped through books for nearly 2 hours. The Arbor waved her hand. Do you like to read medical books a lot? Pei Jian nodded her head vigorously. The little girl, Bai Wei, hurriedly explained on the side. Young miss has been congenitally deficient since she was young. She could only meditate and recuperate her body. She couldn't even train her body. A prolonged illness becomes a doctor, and young miss gradually became obsessed with medical skills. Then do you like to refine pills? Alchemist. Pei Jia hurriedly shook her small hand. It's impossible for me to become an alchemist. Although I really yearn for it, an alchemist needs talent. I'm also not very talented in the art of medicine. I'm just blindly pondering. As she spoke, her small hand secretly touched the cover of the medical book, looking reluctant to part with it. Arbor tugged the corners of her mouth, and she thought she revealed a kind smile. Actually, in other people's eyes, she wasn't smiling at all. There's only a 2-year age difference between us. Don't call me Crown Princess or Miss Pei. Let's say our names, the little Crown Princess said to Pei Jia on such a leisurely afternoon. Pei Jia was faintly happy, but she didn't know that this was the joy of making friends. Her health was poor since she was young, and she basically didn't leave the house. Those noble ladies flattered her on the surface because of her family background, but they secretly mocked her behind her back for being a medicine jar. She overheard it once, so she was even more unwilling to go out and gather with others. She was 17 years old this year, but she hadn't discussed marriage yet. Because of her poor health, every family looked down on her. Fortunately, her mother kept comforting her, saying, My family's daughter is so good. Naturally, there will be a good match for you in the future. Moreover, on Seacon Planet's mainland, there were plenty of people who remarried in their early 20s. However, most of them wasted their time because they painstakingly cultivated. She, on the other hand, was only an ordinary person. Several of her teachers had regretfully told her that with her congenitally deficient body, it was impossible for her to cultivate in this lifetime. Then I'll call you Jojo from now on. Pei Jia revealed a big smile. When the little stoic saw this, she felt that this smile was quite dazzling, so she tried her best to pull out an even bigger smile in return. However, it was a bit difficult for this stoic face to deliberately put on a smile. Jia. The little stoic nodded and handed the medical book to her, saying, Take it back and read it. With a flick of his wrist, he took Pei Jia's pulse. You've taken good care of your health. I'll give you a prescription. Boil the medicine according to the prescription twice a day. After half a month, you won't need to take any more medicine. A surprised smile appeared on the little girl Bai Hui's face. She stammered, Crown Princess, is it true? Miss can get rid of those medicine jars in the future? Arbor nodded. The two of them chatted for a while more about the medical book before Arbor stood up to see Miss Pei out of the estate. Xiao Yao covered her mouth and chuckled as she followed behind. When the crown prince asked about this matter later on, Xiao Yao couldn't resist saying, after Miss Pei came, she sat next to the crown princess and quietly flipped through the book, accompanying the crown princess for an afternoon nap. After waking up, the two of them hit it off. Prince Amo couldn't help but be speechless upon hearing this. 5 days later, the Qiao estate joyfully welcomed second uncle's marriage. Chapter 1267. Early in the morning, Marchioness Wei Ziqin busied herself with a group of servants. Xiao Zhongbong greeted the guests in the front courtyard, a smile on his face the entire time. He was happy for his second brother from the bottom of his heart. Although the wedding was a bit rushed, they wouldn't leave out anything that was necessary. After more than 10 years, second uncle was getting married again. He was a bit flustered and made a few mistakes early in the morning. In order to be on time, second uncle brought the groom's escorts out more than 2 hours in advance. The bride had been brought to the Run estate a day earlier. The two residences were neither close nor far. They would be able to bring her home within 2 hours and wouldn't delay the wedding ceremony. Arbor wore a rare jubilant red dress and specially ran to brother Xiao-Hu's courtyard to see him. As soon as she entered, she heard brother Xiao-Hu quietly complaining to Xiao Yao, "Xiao Yao, I'm not Fua. Look at what I'm wearing. What I look like. Today's old dad's wedding, not mine." Xiao Yao softly spat at him. Xiao-Hu chuckled and went up to hug her. "Xiao Yao, don't you think it's time for our wedding to be on the agenda?" "Bah." Xiao Yao rolled her eyes at him. "Who's with you?" At this moment, the little fellow jumped out like a candle and called out, "Brother Xiao-Hu." Startled, the couple hugging each other swiftly retracted their hands. They coughed lightly and hurriedly adjusted their collars. Arbor pasted the two with her little paws behind her back and circled around them. "Brother Xiao-Hu, if you want to marry Xiao Yao, you have to ask me first." Xiao-Hu immediately went up with a silly smile and rubbed his hands. "Younger sister, you won't watch your older brother be a bachelor for the rest of his life, right?" "That's hard to say." Xiao Mu tilted her small head and stood in front of Xiao Yao. "Our Xiao Yao's conditions are so good, so who can't you find?" Xiao-Hu panicked when he heard this. He hurriedly grabbed his sister's small hand. "Little sister, you can't trick your brother." Arbor glanced at him, took out a box, and threw it to him. "For you." "What is it, little sister?" "The answer is your Xian-breaking pill." Xiao couldn't help but open it and take a look. There were 2 round Xian-breaking pills inside. They were really beautiful. "Little sister, you're so good to us." Xiao-Hu smiled foolishly and rubbed the back of his head. "Let's go. I still have to help Mother greet the guests." "Crown Princess, I will go with you." Xiao Yao hurriedly left Xiao-Hu behind and caught up with Arbor. Along the way, she said, "When I was coming over just now, I heard that eldest Miss and Miss Biao had returned." Arbor stared blankly for a while before realizing that Xiao Yao was talking about Xiao Wenxiu and her daughter. Nodding, he brought Xiao Yao to his mother's courtyard. Arbor asked, "That whatever you on, did he make trouble for the mother and daughter?" According to Mrs. Instructions, Lord Pang took care of them for a few days. "The situation has improved a bit, but that Zhou Yuan is like a mad dog. We can't get rid of him." Arbor nodded. Every family had its own problems. She was just an unmarried little girl, so she couldn't stretch her hands too far. She had to take care of everything. In any case, she could just leave these miscellaneous matters to her parents. Her father was her cousin Pu Rulin's proper uncle. With this identity as an elder, he could naturally make decisions for Pu Rulin. Chapter 1268. When Arbor brought Xiao Yao to his second uncle's new courtyard, he saw his mother busily giving orders to this and that, running around in circles with a group of servants. "Hurry! Hurry! The newlyweds are about to arrive. Everyone move nimbly. Hey, bring the wedding cake into the house." The old nanny who followed Wei Ziqin by her side called out to the servants who were coming and going. When she looked up and saw Arbor and Xiao Yao, she smiled so widely that her eyes could not be seen and went forward to welcome them. Crown Princess, Miss Xiao Yao, you're here. Madam is busy right now. It's fine, I just came to take a look. Idler rubbed her small chin. Is there anything I can help you with? Spring had begun, and the air had already warmed up. Wei Ziqing paced back and forth in the new courtyard a few times, the tip of her nose sweating. Seeing her daughter come over, she hurried forward and smiled as she held her daughter's small hand. Jojo, there are so many things to do today, and there are so many people. Fortunately, your eldest aunt came early and can still help me now. Oh, that's right, Jojo, you haven't met eldest aunt and cousin yet, right? Come, come, come. Wei Ziqing held her daughter's small hand and gave Nanny Xiao a few more instructions before calling into the house. Wenxiu, Rulin, come quickly, our Jojo is here. Two women walked out of the house. The older one was wearing a long, golden blue straight collar gown with long sleeves. Her makeup did not seem to be expensive jewelry. When she looked at Arbor, she smiled and nodded. Jojo, you still recognize eldest aunt. The younger woman's face was very gentle and delicate. She wore a long dress with an Aquarius collar, and her hair was tied up in a woman's bun. A wooden hairpin was inserted into her clean hair, and she wore a wooden bracelet on her wrist. She looked exceptionally simple. Arbor stepped forward and nodded at Xiao Wenxiu and her daughter. Eldest aunt, cousin. Jojo, good boy, I don't have any valuable gifts for you. Keep this well. It's a small token of appreciation from Elder Annie. Xiao Wenxiu gave Arbor a pure gold bracelet. The quality wasn't too good. Among the pile of gold and jade in Arbor, it could be said to be second best. If it were any other young ladies who despise the poor and love the rich, they might even mock their poor relatives. Yet Xiao Mu accepted it without another word. She nodded at Xiao Wenxiu and expressionlessly said, "Thank you, Auntie." Xiao Wenxiu smiled happily. Back then, when Annie brought your cousin back to Quoto Village, you were still young and might not remember. This is your cousin, Rulin. Pu Rulin stepped forward and smiled. Cousin, all right, Mother and your eldest aunt still have a lot of things to do. Help Mother take care of cousin. Wei Ziqing chuckled as she pulled Xiao Wenxiu and was about to leave. Just as they were about to leave, a breathless woman hurriedly ran over and beamed from ear to ear. They're here, they're here, they're here. The bridal sedan is almost at the intersection. Hurry, go to the door to welcome them. Are the gongs and drums ready? Where's the drummer? Where's the drummer? Madam is ready. Let's hurry to the door. Arbor speechlessly glanced at her mother's departing figure. Her mother was busy with fetching the bride, and she had become an idle person again. She turned to look at Pu Rulin and said, Cousin, let's go to Shaolin Er's courtyard. It's a bit too chaotic here. Pu Rulin smiled and nodded. Okay. The two of them exited the new courtyard and turned to Shaolin Er's courtyard. However, halfway there, they ran into the young lady who was rushing over. Chapter 1269. There were a lot of guests that came today, and the gatehouse was busy receiving the gifts and announcing the names. The Marquis of Su An's estate's madam has arrived. The old madam of Duke Qing's estate has arrived. The manservants and maids ran back and forth in waves, taking away a group of people, and then another group of people came. It really was as busy as a marketplace, with an endless stream of people. Wei Ziqing and Xiao Zhongbong were in the front courtyard and back garden respectively, receiving the male and female guests that came to visit. Prince Amo took a stroll around the Marquis's estate. When he found his dainty little wife, that little fellow was sitting leisurely on a swing, cracking melon seeds and chatting with her younger sister, Xiaolin. Pu Rulin raised her head and saw a tall and slender young master walking towards them. She hastily stood up and quickly walked to the swing to give a reminder. Younger cousin, someone's coming. Brother-in-law's coming. Xiaolin immediately jumped down from the swing and held Pu Rulin's hand with a smile. Older cousin, that's His Highness the Crown Prince. Pu Rulin hurriedly curtsied. Arbor was still swaying on the swing, looking up at the man walking over. Why are you in the back courtyard? I'm here to see if my Jojo is slacking off again. Emo Yin walked over with a smile, waving his hand for Pu Rulin to get up and not be overly courteous. Arbor cast a glance at him and lightly snorted. There are so many orioles and swallows outside. I don't have the time to greet them one by one. Today was second uncle's wedding, and mother had reminded her 2 or 3 days in advance that she absolutely couldn't throw a tantrum. Everyone who came was a guest, so don't hit a guest without a word. So ridiculous. Did she need mother to remind her? It wasn't like she was crazy. If others didn't come to provoke her, how could she go crazy and hit them? The most annoying one was that whatever fourth princess, who had run to the great king and fiercely complained about her. She said that she beat her up until she couldn't see anyone. She was simply crazy. When had she ever hit this fourth princess? She didn't even know the fourth princess, okay? Thinking of this, he glanced at Mo Yin with some displeasure. He thought to himself, his house is the place with the most women in the world. So annoying. Prince Mo saw the look in his wife's eyes and hurriedly moved his head over to look at her with a smile. What's wrong? Why are you looking at your husband like that? What did I do wrong? Tell me, tell me. Jolin, who had long been used to the crown prince showing off his affection to her sister, covered her mouth and snickered. On the other hand, Purulin was rather surprised. For a moment, he didn't think that His Highness, who looked so high and mighty, was actually such a person. Arbor glared at him and pushed his hand away. Cousin is here. We're all on the same side. Prince Mo smiled and grabbed Arbor's little hand. We can't take a nap today. What should I do? I'm going to sleep in the afternoon. During this period of time, idlers like Mu Tian took a nap and used her free time to draw talismans. She was simply too carefree. Hey! Arbor blushed and glared at him. This guy only knew how to tease her. Today was second uncle's wedding. Could it be that she could abandon the guests in the house and take a nap alone in her room? Prince Mo smiled and rubbed the little fellow's face. I'm not teasing you. I'm just worried that you can't take a nap. You're not allowed to say it. Arbor punched him and turned her head away with a stoic expression. Jojo. Emolian reached out and cupped her little head. Chapter 1270. Emolian gazed at her with curved eyes and chuckled softly. There are still 15 days left. Arbor rolled her eyes at him, but the corners of her lips involuntarily curled up. When Xiao Lin heard this, she couldn't help covering her mouth and sniggering happily. Yet Pu Rulin asked softly in confusion, what does Crown Prince mean? Xiao Lin whispered the wedding date in Pu Rulin's ear, and Pu Rulin immediately understood and nodded with a smile. Brother-in-law, you had to prepare a big red packet. Xiao Lin sat at the stone table and shouted toward the swing from afar. Mo Yin looked over and nodded with a smile. Okay, 7th Master Mu is here. Arbor sat in the rear courtyard and could hear the excited shouts from the front courtyard. Her gaze turned cold. What's wrong, baby? Mo Yin was slightly taken aback. His wifey was still in an extremely good mood just now, but now her small face had turned gloomy. She really changed so quickly. However, that 7th Master of the Mu family of the Divine Province was also quite strange. He came on Jojo's coming-of-age ceremony and also came on Qiao family's second uncle's wedding, as if he was very familiar with the Qiao family. At this time, several excited shouts came from the front courtyard. Everyone stood up and looked at Mu Jingrue, who strode in from the front door. They smiled and cupped their fists in salute. The white-haired elder haughtily carried a large brocade box as he followed behind Mu Jingrue. His gaze was somewhat disdainful. In his eyes, this group of brats from the lower star domain were indeed as weak as ants. Mu Jingrue presented a big gift on this trip, the Snow Summit Lingji. When the Lingji was presented, everyone's eyes were practically glowing as they stared at the spirit herb, especially the few doctors and pill refiners among the guests. They stared at the divine herb, wishing they could pounce on it and examine it carefully. The smile on Xiao Zhongbang's lips stiffened slightly. The groom, Xiao Zhongxing, stepped forward in confusion and cupped his fists at Mu Jingrue, saying thank you in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. It was so strange. He had no interaction with this 7th Master Mu from the Divine Land. Why did this person give him a wedding gift out of the blue? Congratulations, congratulations. Mu Jingrue smiled and said a few polite words. Suddenly, there was a small commotion in the crowd. Naturally, they parted to the sides like a tide. The little crown princess and Prince Imo walked over hand in hand, their little faces cold and expressionless. Their eyes were like daggers as they stabbed at Mu Jingrue and the white-haired elder. "What are you doing here?" Arbor was about to take a step forward when his mother, Wei Ziqin, rushed over and grabbed his little hand. "Jojo." Wei Ziqin hurriedly shook her head. Arbor glared at Mu Jingrue with a cold gaze that implied a warning. Mu Jingrue instantly understood the little fellow's meaning. Don't speak nonsense. This was warning him not to reveal her identity as the daughter of the Mu family of the Divine Land in front of so many people. Right? Just how much did she dislike the Mu family, and how much did she not want to be involved with the Mu family? Mu Jingrue sighed softly in his heart. He subconsciously glanced at Prince Imo and frowned slightly. This crown prince's aura also seemed a bit off. When Mu Jingrue was sizing him up, Prince Imo also sized him up. A trace of hesitation flitted across his heart. "Ha! Today is second uncle's big day. I didn't come late, right? Today's over. Wave." Chapter 1271. At this moment, a white-robed, skinny pretty boy appeared at the door. He brought a large chest of gifts and was escorted in by a large entourage. More than a dozen servants circled around him, shouting as they entered the door. The pretty boy's gaze flickered as he swept his gaze over everyone present and revealed a reserved smile. Next to him was a well-developed woman around 25 or 26 years old. She was gorgeously dressed, and her hair was covered in pearls and jade. She had an arrogant attitude and raised her chin as she held onto the pretty boy's arm. Her ample bosom was pressed against the pretty boy's arm. It could be said that none of the officials and family members of the various dukes and marquises' estates, as well as the young masters and young misses of the aristocratic families, had such a grand display of extravagance. The dozen or so servants were all dressed in the same manner and had palm-sized copper coins hanging from their necks. Everyone stared at them strangely, feeling that they were full of the aura of nouveau riche. "Ha ha! Oh my, second uncle-in-law's big day today. Sorry, I'm late. A fat ball emerged from the back of the crowd. She was dressed in bright red and green clothes, and her face was smeared like a monkey's, but at first glance, she looked like a matchmaker. Fat Ball moved her feet and arrived in front of Second Uncle Chiao with a smile. Second Uncle Chiao subconsciously took a step back, and his expression instantly became extremely unsightly. Chiao Mu looked at the uninvited nouveau riche in confusion. As she looked at the pretty boy surrounded by people, a name faintly popped up in her mind. "Zhou Yuan, what are you doing here?" Chiao Hu took a step forward and tightly clenched his fists, his face full of anger. Arbor turned his head and glanced at Pu Rulin. He saw that her face was slightly pale, and her eyes faintly revealed a trace of anger. Clearly, she had not expected that her ex-husband would make a public appearance in this kind of situation. "Scram, you're not welcome here." Second Uncle Chiao angrily shouted with a cold expression. "Second Uncle, is there some misunderstanding about me?" The pretty boy looked at them with a chuckle. Fat Ball hurriedly came forward and said with a smile, "Second uncle-in-law, today is your big day, so don't get angry. Come on, bring all the gifts up here. Second uncle, this is just a small token of appreciation from our Zhou family." Preposterous. Second Uncle Chiao was furious. He was about to step forward when his elder brother, Qiao Zhongbong, stopped him. "What have you come here for?" Qiao Zhongbong sneered and shouted at Zhou Yuan. "You little bastard, you dare come here to ask for a beating? Get out of my sight." Zhou Yuan subconsciously shrank back, looking like a coward. Qiao Zhongbong and his brother were infuriated. "Eldest uncle, second uncle, please don't misunderstand. Your nephew's visit today has no other intentions than to congratulate second uncle on his wedding." The pretty boy Zhou Yuan said in a low voice, looking as if he had been wronged. Xiao Wenxiu, who was standing at the side, had long been angered by his shameless behavior. Her entire body was trembling, and her face was pale. "Mother!" Pu Rulin supported her mother and stubbornly pursed her lips, not saying anything for a while. Eldest uncle-in-law, second uncle-in-law, our family Xiao Yuan was young and ignorant in the past, so he spoke without thinking and wanted to divorce his wife. Fat Ball smiled ingratiatingly and stepped forward to grab Pu Rulin's hand, but she pulled back and avoided it. The fake smile on Fat Ball's face froze. Chapter 1272. Enduring the anger of slapping her former daughter-in-law, that Fat Ball, Zhou Yuan's mother, laughed dryly and said, "Daughter-in-law, go back with mother-in-law. It's just a small conflict with husband. There's no need to escalate it to the point of divorce. Don't worry, mother-in-law has already taught him a harsh lesson. Xiao Yuan will definitely not mention the matter of divorce to you in the future." When Xiao Lin heard this, she jumped up in anger and blocked Pu Rulin's path with a livid face. "Are you crazy? You've already obtained the divorce document and stamped it with the official seal. How can this matter be faked? Go away. My older cousin already has nothing to do with your Zhou family. What does a child like you know? Don't meddle in adult matters. Go, go, go." Zhou Yuan's mother waved her hand in exasperation, then turned to face Pu Rulin with a smile. "Daughter-in-law, it's said that between husband and wife, they fight at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end of the bed. You can't be so angry with Xiao Yuan over such a small matter. Be obedient and go home with mother-in-law." No one had expected that such a scene would occur on such a joyous day. The guests all looked at each other in dismay. Second Uncle Qiao was so angry that his eyes were about to spit fire. He roared angrily at the door. "Where is everyone? What are you all standing there for? Throw this entire family out." After speaking, he stepped forward and kicked the gift box several times, kicking out some of the silks, satins, porcelain, paintings, and the like. He stepped forward and stomped on them several times. The woman beside Zhou Yuan, whose hair was adorned with pearls and jade and was dressed like a peacock, shrieked and rushed forward to push second Uncle Qiao away. Without waiting for Zhou Yuan to go forward and pull her away, that woman pointed at second uncle and cursed. "You pauper! Who do you think you are? I gave you face, but you don't want it. These porcelain, calligraphy, and paintings are all famous works of art. You can't buy them even if you have money. You actually dare to trample on them like this. Chi-Chi, don't be angry, don't be angry." Zhou Yuan's mother hastily grabbed the Gao family's daughter's small hand fawningly. When she looked at second Uncle Qiao, there was a hint of anger on her face. "Second uncle, you're really ruining our good intentions." Zhou Yuan's mother wailed. "Originally, my daughter-in-law and son had always been fine. Ever since you took her back, she didn't recognize any of her family. She didn't even want her husband and mother-in-law. This is truly a sin brought upon by the heavens. Why don't you send a lightning bolt to kill this unfilial daughter-in-law?" Wei Ziqin was so angry that her whole body trembled. Today was her second uncle's wedding. She didn't expect that so many weirdos would come and ruin a good marriage. "Men, throw them all out." Wei Ziqin was so angry that she felt dizzy. She waved her hand and roared. The servants of the Qiao family all rushed over, but before they could even get close to Zhou Yuan and the others, they were pushed and shoved by the dozen or so retainers of the Zhou family. They raised their fists and looked like they were about to start fighting. Wouldn't this mess turn the entire wedding into a mess? Pu Rulin was so angry that her eyes were bloodshot. Supporting her mother, Xiao Wenxiu, she took a step forward and said angrily, "Stop. Zhou Yuan, you heartless and unscrupulous thing. There's a divorce agreement between us as proof, so we've long had nothing to do with each other. You actually have the face to take advantage of second uncle's wedding to come cause trouble. What did you say?" Zhou Yuan's mother immediately widened her eyes and glared angrily. "What bullshit divorce agreement? In short, this old mother won't admit it. As long as you're the daughter-in-law of the Zhou family, you'll be the ghost of the Zhou family until you die." Chapter 1273. Bullshit. In order to marry the Gao family's daughter, your son wants to divorce my older cousin. Before Qiao Hu could finish his sentence, he was pounced on by that cursed old woman. Xiao Yao hurriedly pulled him to her side, preventing him from being pounced on by that old woman. Old Xiao family is unreasonable. Old Xiao family is abusing their power to bully others. Zhou Yuan's mother suddenly sat down and began to bawl like a shrew. The crowd of officials, nobles, madams, and noble ladies all looked at each other in dismay, their expressions awkward. In this situation, was it better for them to leave or stay? My son wants to marry the Gao family's daughter, but why don't you ask the lords and young masters present, which of their families doesn't have a few beautiful wives and concubines? Your old Qiao family is too overbearing. Could it be that when your Qiao family's daughter marries, the husband's family is not allowed to take in concubines and take in co-wives? Zhou Yuan's mother slapped her thigh and bawled. She scrambled up from the ground and tugged on a certain official's robe, yelling, "This official, please be the judge for this little woman. Isn't their Qiao family being too unreasonable?" The man didn't expect this village woman to use such a trick. He immediately retreated in embarrassment, but he couldn't stop the corner of his robe from falling into the old woman's hands. After tugging back and forth, he heard a ripping sound, and the corner of the man's robe was torn off by the old woman. His face turned green on the spot. Xiao Zhongbong was enraged and kicked Zhou Yuan's mother. "Get out of my way. Is official Su all right?" Xiao Zhongbong looked apologetically at that green-faced official. "Someone come quickly. Bring official Su to change his clothes." After Zhou Yuan's mother took a kick from Xiao Zhongbong, she lay on the ground and stammered. She clutched her chest and pretended to be in unbearable pain. Old Xiao family is going to kill someone. Kill someone. Mother." The pretty boy, Zhou Yuan, quickly stepped forward and helped his pretentious mother up from the ground. He turned to glare at Pu Ruolin and berated, "You stupid woman, don't you think you've lost enough face? Hurry and come home with us." Pu Ruolin supported her mother, who was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She coldly gazed at Zhou Yuan and said, "You and I have already separated." Zhou Yuan pointed at Pu Ruolin and cursed, "You vicious woman, are you trying to anger my mother to death? My mother said that she doesn't recognize this divorce." Pu Ruolin, don't think you can ride over your husband and mother-in-law just because you have the marquis of Jiyuan's estate backing you up. You wicked woman, causing trouble all day long, making the whole family restless. Look at what you've become. Why didn't he learn from Chi-Chi and see the big picture? Chi-Chi doesn't even mind letting me marry you as a co-wife. What else are you dissatisfied with? Xiao Enxiu was so angry that she leaned backwards. She pointed a trembling finger at Zhou Yuan and said, "You little bastard. Back then, in order to marry the daughter of the Gao family, you first wanted to demote your wife to a concubine. Our Ruolin refused no matter what. So you colluded with your mother to fabricate a crime for our Ruolin, wanting to have her divorced and become a nun. Now, you see that Ruolin's uncle is the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate. So you want to turn around and coax our Ruolin back. You. How can there be such a shameless, black-hearted mother and son in this world?" Xiao Wenxiu was so angry that she couldn't stop wiping her tears. Zhou Yuan's mother's eyes darted around. She slapped her thigh and wailed, "I've been wronged. I've been greatly wronged. You're making slanderous accusations. When did we say that we wanted to divorce Ruolin?" Chapter 1274. It's just that Ruolin is jealous and refuses to accept the Gao family's miss. That's why things have turned into such a complicated situation. All the young masters and masters present here, please be the judge of this. This Qiao family's daughter is jealous by nature. Zhou Yuan's mother exclaimed with great pretense. "If she's like this, who would dare to marry your old Qiao family's daughter in the future?" Her eyes darted around, and then she shouted loudly, "I heard that your Qiao family's eldest daughter is going to marry into the palace to be the crown prince's consort. Could it be that you can request His Highness the Crown Prince to only guard your old Qiao family's daughter for the rest of his life? And you won't allow His Highness to have 18 consorts from the 3 palaces and 9 courtyards?" Everyone speechlessly looked at each other in bewilderment. Strangely enough, This fire had spread to His Highness the Crown Prince. His Highness was being shot while lying down. At this time, a magnetic voice chuckled. That's right, it's not just 18 consorts from the 3 palaces and 9 courtyards. It might even be multiplied. Prince Imo, who was being shot while lying down, narrowed his phoenix eyes and looked around. Duanyu, don't think that this crown prince can't recognize your voice just because you're speaking in such an eccentric manner. You're always trying to dig a hole to bury me. Dream on. Jojo wouldn't believe you. Prince Imo held Arbor's small hand as he coldly swept a glance at that foolish woman, Zhou Yuan's mother. You old woman, you dare to speak nonsense and slander this prince? Zhou Yuan's mother was completely flabbergasted. She dazedly looked up at that handsome man who was like a god. Her mouth actually felt a bit dry. Your Highness? Your Highness the Crown Prince? So it turned out that the rumor that the Crown Prince doted on the Qiao family's eldest daughter immensely was true. The marriage of a mere second Master Qiao, who had no scholarly achievements, was originally a very ordinary marriage. Just because he was eldest Miss Qiao's second uncle, the Crown Prince actually came to give face. No wonder when her old man learned that Pu Rulin's eldest uncle was the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate. He rained down a torrent of abuse on her and her son, saying that they were short-sighted and only cared about what was in front of them. He insisted that they bring extravagant gifts to coax his daughter-in-law, Pu Rulin, back. So there was such a relationship between them. If the Zhou family and old Qiao family could become in-laws again, with eldest Miss Qiao's relationship with the Crown Princess, the Zhou family would definitely have a meteoric rise in the future. Zhou Yuan's mother hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed with a fawning expression. This commoner did not know that your Highness was here. This commoner misspoke. With Imo Yin's status, she naturally wouldn't lower herself to the level of a stupid woman. She was too lazy to care anymore and moved her gaze away. Zhou Yuan hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands with a flattering smile. Your Highness Crown Prince, this is all a misunderstanding. It was originally a family matter, but now it has become a joke in front of His Highness the Crown Prince and everyone else. Gao Qiqi twisted her plump body and held Zhou Yuan's arm in a show of force. She glanced at Pu Rulin arrogantly and disdainfully. Don't pretend. You should be happy that your husband and mother-in-law are willing to come and pick you up. It's better to know when to stop. If it weren't for Big Brother exhorting her to be patient, she wouldn't have let this bitch enter the Zhou family's doors again. In any case, her husband had already promised her. Now, she was only coaxing this stupid woman back for the sake of the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate. Once she used the Marquis's estate's influence to establish a relationship with the Crown Prince, this stupid woman would be useless in the future. She could do whatever she wanted with her. She was the daughter of the richest family in the Imo Kingdom capital's Gao family. Her family had so much food that they couldn't finish it. Chapter 1275. Now that she, Gao Qiqi, was willing to marry into this tiny Zhou family, it was the Zhou family's good fortune accumulated over several lifetimes. If the Zhou family didn't properly curry favor with her, would they dare to treat her unfairly? As for that slut, Pu Rulin, she was just a bit luckier and was able to recognize a relative from the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate. Otherwise, she would have to live in a run-down temple and eat chaff and pickles. You actually dare. Xiao Wenxiu gazed at the arrogant Gao Qiqi and felt even more heartache for her daughter. Back then, if her domineering mother-in-law hadn't cried and made a fuss and forced her daughter Rulin to marry into the Zhou family, how could there be so many troublesome matters now? Thinking about it made her even sadder. She was just a useless bun. It was her fault. It was all her fault. She didn't protect her daughter well. She was cowardly and useless. She didn't dare to resist, which led to the current situation. Zhou Yuan, you little bastard. You still dare to bring her to our Qiao family. Second Uncle Qiao was so angry that his head was about to explode. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many guests here, he would have raised his fist and beaten Zhou Yuan, this little bastard, to death. Zhou Yuan was still a bit afraid of his two uncles, Xiao Zhongbong, and second uncle Qiao, and shrank behind Gao Qiqi when he heard this. Gao Qiqi puffed out her chest and waved her hand forcefully. Two vigorous body cultivators walked out from behind them. They crossed their arms and looked disdainfully at the Qiao family crowd with cold eyes. These two body cultivators were newly hired bodyguards by the Gao family. Compared to the body cultivators who had injured second Uncle Qiao and Little Tiger, they were 2 levels stronger. Their 2 bulky arms brimming with explosive power and bulging muscles crossed their arms in front of their chests. The moment the 2 body cultivators from the Gao family appeared, they subdued the group of madams and noble ladies. They retreated in fright, afraid that the fight would affect the innocent. Gao Qiqi swept a mocking glance at Pu Ruolin. Pu Ruolin, don't be so shameless. What are you still standing there for? Take her away. Xiao Wenxiu grasped her daughter's arm tightly in fright and shrieked, You dare! Don't touch my daughter! Don't touch her! Gao Qiqi walked in front of Pu Ruolin and arrogantly raised her head. She glanced at Pu Ruolin from the corner of her eyes. The Marquis' estate can support you for a day, but can it support you for a lifetime? Pu Ruolin, I advise you to quit while you're ahead. Don't embarrass yourself and your mother-in-law. Anger flashed in Pu Ruolin's eyes as she abruptly raised her hand, looking like she was going to slap her. Zhou Yuan's mother shrieked, What are you doing? Why do I have such an ignorant daughter-in-law? Look at Qiqi. She's the dignified daughter of the Gao family. A pure and innocent little girl like her doesn't mind sharing a husband with you. Why are you still being so pretentious? Slap. Gao Qiqi slapped Pu Ruolin's hand away and fiercely slapped her. Pu Ruolin stretched out her small hand and covered her face that had been slapped. Her eyes immediately turned red. Gao Qiqi smiled and shook her hand. She laughed mockingly and provocatively. Coward, why don't you make a move? I don't think you have the guts. You're just a good-for-nothing with a dead father, yet you still want to compete with me? I, Gao Qiqi, am willing to be so benevolent and let you enter the Zhou family anew. That's already thinking highly of you. You shameless thing, slut. Hit me. Hit me if you want. Pu Ruolin, I don't think you dare to hit me. Chapter 1276. Arbor blinked, then blinked again. Suddenly, she pattered to Pu Ruolin and Gao Qiqi's side. When the young masters present saw the crown princess's actions, the corners of their mouths twitched. Slap, slap, slap. Ha ha. Sure enough, the little crown princess was funny when she didn't make a move. After giving Gao Qiqi 3 slaps, she ignored the stupefied Gao Qiqi. The little crown princess turned to look at her older cousin with a puzzled expression and asked, Older cousin, others have repeatedly invited you to hit her. Why aren't you doing anything? Invite, 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 invite. Puffed. Situ Yi's hand, which was waving the folding fan, stiffened slightly. Gao Qiqi seemed to be frozen in place. After a few seconds of stupefaction, she suddenly shrieked. The little crown princess suddenly waved her hand and sprinkled a handful of powder at Gao Qiqi's face. When the surrounding people saw this, they immediately retreated in fright, afraid that this inexplicable powder would contaminate them and cause them to be caught in the crossfire. Abba, 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 Abba. The moment Gao Qiqi opened her mouth to speak, she discovered that she seemed to have been poisoned into a mute. She had no voice at all and could only make a few basic Abba Abba sounds. She looked at Arbor in horror. The 3 kilograms of powder on her face kept falling down because her facial muscles were trembling in fear. Abba Abba, Abba Abba. Gao Qiqi reached out to grab Zhou Yuan's hand and shook it vigorously. Zhou Yuan immediately put on a fierce front and angrily said, What did you do to Qiqi? Zhou Yuan's mother also shrieked. Old Xiao's family is too unreasonable. As the saying goes, it's better to tear down 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. You people actually all encourage my daughter-in-law to run away from home. Now you're doing this to our Qiqi. Without waiting for the little crown princess to make a move, a chubby, bald little monk popped out from the side and angrily shouted, Old benefactor, you're wrong to say that. Your daughter-in-law ran away. So why did you go and tear down our temple? You're simply unruly, eccentric, and unreasonable. Zhou Yuan's mother looked at the little monk who had suddenly appeared with a stupefied expression. Arbor did not wait for her to howl again. In a flash, he appeared in front of them. A blue light flashed in his hand, and more than 10 ebony body securing talismans flew out. Set. After one round, other than the 2 body cultivators with similar cultivation to her, who struggled free after being immobilized, everyone else was immobilized on the spot. They were all immobilized on the spot, and each of them was in a strange posture. It was finally quiet. Arbor waved his hand. Move them out. It's the crown princess. The servants of the Qiao family swarmed forward, some carrying and some dragging the Zhou family out. When they were moving the Zhou family out, they even pinched them a few times. Gao Qiqi watched in horror as those manservants came up to carry her away. She was thrown out of the Marquis' estate's main gate by the Qiao family without any resistance. Throw it further away. It's annoying to look at it, Arbor instructed, then turned to look at the 2 frozen body cultivators from the Gao family. What? Waiting for a meal? The 2 body cultivators glanced at her, and one of them quickly swept his eyes over everyone. Little miss, you're a talisman practitioner, right? Arbor waved his hand, and a thunder spirit talisman appeared in his hand. It looks like you want to try it. That's fine. Arbor nodded his cold, electric gaze shooting a glance at Mu Jingrui and Old Bai. I'll let you experience it. Chapter 1277. This was the Thunder Spirit Talisman that she had just learned. When the Thunder Spirit energy exploded on her body, she was afraid that it would be a little uncomfortable. The little fellow couldn't be bothered to say more. With a flick of her finger, the 2 Thunder Spirit Talismans shot towards the 2 body cultivators like arrows released from a bow. With a wave of her hand, a defensive barrier was set up around the 2 of them. This was to prevent the spiritual energy from the Thunder Spirit Talisman from spilling out and harming others. Otherwise, Arbor wouldn't have to do something so superfluous. After all, there were many guests here, and they were all people of status. She didn't want to hurt anyone, as there would be a lot of chatter later. The 2 ebony Thunder Spirit Talismans instantly split open above the 2 body cultivators' heads, and the talisman energy instantly burrowed into their bodies. In just a breath's time, strange changes began to occur above their heads. A bolt of Thunder Spirit energy that tore through the air suddenly descended, landing above their heads with a rumble. Accompanied by the sound of thunder and a flash of lightning, the 2 body cultivators felt as if they had been struck by lightning, and they immediately felt an indescribable pain in their bodies. BZZT. Their faces instantly darkened, and their hair was charred black when the lightning touched them. This was only the first bolt of lightning. In the next 2 minutes, a total of 9 bolts of lightning fell. When the last bolt of lightning exploded above their heads with a rumble, the 2 body cultivators' heads rolled. The 2 unlucky body cultivators rolled their eyes at the same time and fell to the ground with a plop. Just like that, 2 13th level body cultivators were struck unconscious by a small talisman. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the little crown princess standing in front of them. Upon seeing this, Xiaomu creased her brows slightly and muttered to herself, I thought I could strike down 12 bolts of lightning. On the other side, the white-haired elder's mouth was slightly agape, and he looked at Arbor in disbelief. This girl could actually draw one of the 5 spirit talismans, the Thunder Spirit Talisman? One had to know that those who could draw the 5 spirit talisman were all talisman geniuses, 1 in 10,000. Even if their talisman clan possessed the inheritance of 5 spirit talismans, the number of talisman masters that were capable of drawing 5 spirit talismans didn't exceed 100. Among the younger disciples, the only ones who could draw such professional Thunder Spirit talismans were probably the Mu family's eldest young master and eldest young mistress. Furthermore, the high-grade Thunder Spirit talisman that the first miss had drawn could only generate 6 bolts of spiritual lightning. One had to know that each additional bolt of lightning was extremely difficult to obtain. Their talisman aristocratic family had tens of thousands of disciples, but less than 100 of them had mastered the five-spirit talisman. A little girl who had always lived in a mere lower star field had actually learned the thunder spirit talisman on her own. The white-haired old man's heart stirred slightly. The old master had indeed found the right person to send the seventh master to search for this young lady. Previously, he had always been somewhat dissatisfied because in the past 10 years he had been accompanying seventh master everywhere to find a child that was basically impossible to find. It was very troublesome, and it even delayed his own cultivation. If it weren't for the fact that the old family head had secretly bestowed him with a lot of cultivation resources, he wouldn't have been too happy to accompany the seventh master on this trip. But now, all these thoughts had vanished without a trace. A 15-year-old genius little girl who could skillfully draw thunder spirit talismans. If they brought her back to the divine lands, after a period of careful nurturing, she would definitely become a core member of the talisman aristocratic family in the future. Chapter 1278. In the future, it wasn't impossible for her to assist eldest young master in controlling the entire talisman patrician family and lead them to the pinnacle of the divine mainland. Thinking of this, the white-haired elder's mood surged. It was as if he could already see the scene of the talisman patrician family reaching the pinnacle of life. The current talisman patrician family was neither high nor low among the 6 great patrician families of the divine mainland and could only rank 3rd or 4th. Not to mention the divine mainland's Qin family. Their position as the head of the 6 great patrician families was unshakable. Even the Duan family, the number 2 concealed weapons patrician family, couldn't compare. And if their clan could produce a young genius like Qiao Mu, then it would be hard to say how they would develop in the future. Qiao Mu dispelled the defensive boundary and gazed apathetically at those 2 body cultivators. Someone throw them out. Yes. The servants of the Qiao family rushed forward in high spirits, kicking and punching the 2 body cultivators and dragging them out like dead pigs. Only after tossing them far away did they stop. Eldest Miss was truly formidable. In the Qiao family, the same thoughts surfaced simultaneously. As long as Eldest Miss was here, no matter who dared to come and cause trouble, they would only have a miserable end. Mu Jingrui looked deeply at Arbor and softly chuckled. The crown princess is truly an eye-opener. Arbor ignored him and turned to the dumbstruck second Uncle Qiao. Second uncle, it's fine now. Everyone, please take a seat. Right. Take a seat. Mo Yin reached out to squeeze his wifey's hand before leaving with Qiao Zhongbong and the rest. As for the womenfolk, Wei Ziqin arranged for them to take their seats. After such a commotion, everyone's interest waned. Fortunately, nothing else happened during the banquet, so the guests and hosts enjoyed themselves thoroughly. Arbor glanced at Pu Ruolin and gave Xiaolin a look. Xiaolin immediately understood and intimately hugged Pu Ruolin's arm. Cousin, don't be unhappy. There's no reason for you to be in a bad mood because of that cheap man. All right, cousin, what's your cultivation level now? My aptitude isn't high. I've always hovered around level 5 mystic cultivator. What does it matter? I'm only a level 6 mystic cultivator and have just touched the barrier of level 7 mystic cultivator. I don't even know when I'll be able to break through. Being teased by her younger cousin, Pu Ruolin's dejected mood involuntarily improved a little, and she said with a smile, "Younger sister, you're still young. At your age, you're about to break through to become a level 7 mystic cultivator. Your talent and aptitude must be very impressive." Of course. Xiaolin giggled as she pulled Pu Ruolin's hand and said, "Cousin, when we're free, why don't we exchange our cultivation experiences with each other? Who knows? We might be able to help each other." Very good. Pu Ruolin also knew that her cousin was deliberately changing the topic to make her happy. As he thought about it, his heart couldn't help but warm up a bit. He turned to look at the little stoic sitting on the side and eating. He pursed his lips and said with a smile, "Younger cousin, just now. I've troubled you." The little stoic's small hand holding the chopsticks paused, and she shook her head with a serious expression. It's no trouble. I'm bored anyway. Wasn't it pretty good that someone delivered themselves to her door to help her practice talismans? Wei Ziqing almost choked on her daughter's words. Arbor ate a few more times when she suddenly saw a huge egg abruptly jump out of her inner world and shriek, "Woman, hurry, hurry. I smell the scent of black spirit jade." Chapter 1279. What black spirit jade? Arbor stared in bewilderment at the egg that had suddenly jumped out. The egg anxiously howled at her. "Hurry, hurry, you idiot! I told you to hurry and get up. Why can't you understand me? Hurry and carry me. Go over there, over there. I really can smell the scent of black spirit jade. Hurry, hurry." Arbor couldn't help but feel a bit of a headache after being yelled at by the egg. She went forward and hugged it, then ran in the direction it was pointing at. What black spirit jade? Tell me clearly. Why did the profound spirit jade sound so familiar? Sister, I'll go with you. Seeing that there was a show to watch, Shaolin immediately stopped eating and casually took 2 bites of food before hastily getting up to chase after Arbor. Wei Ziqing turned to look at Xiao Yao, who was standing beside her, with a puzzled expression. Xiao Yao covered her mouth and laughed. Don't worry, madam. It should be fine. Miss will probably be back soon. However, Wei Ziqing asked, That's a talking egg? She turned her gaze and saw that the madams and young misses at this table also revealed slightly shocked expressions. It was clear that she wasn't the only one who felt that her child was a bit strange. "Amen. It's an ancient phoenix egg," Xiao Yao said with a nod. In any case, this matter was no longer a secret, so there was no need to cover it up. When the 8 great patrician families returned from the Mystic Beast Forest, they were all spreading the news that Miss had obtained a phoenix egg. As for Arbor, she hugged that chirping phoenix egg and ran in the direction it was pointing. After running for a while, she stopped and asked with a puzzled expression, "That's the front courtyard. What are we going there for?" "So long-winded," the egg shouted. "I told you to go, so go. What's with all the nonsense? Let's go." Arbor. Strange, these words sound somewhat familiar. Xiao Mu hugged the egg and swiftly ran to the front courtyard's entrance. She poked her small head inside the arched door and saw that nearly 100 tables had been set up in the court, and her father and second uncle were glowing from drinking with others. She hurriedly retracted her little head and hugged the egg as she asked seriously, "I remember now, that black spirit jade. Xiao told me about it before. It was said to be an extremely rare heavenly treasure that could replenish the energy of the 5 spirits. What use is it to you?" Look at how excited the egg was. Profound spirit jade is a great supplement and is also very beneficial to me. What does a kid like you know? Hurry up and go. As long as I absorb the profound spirit jade, I can break out of my shell. You're the kid. Arbor stretched out its little paw and knocked on the egg. Then he regretted it. She didn't know what kind of broken egg it was, but it was as hard as a diamond. When she knocked on it, her 2 fingers hurt. Go. What a big shot. Arbor thought, you're about to break out of your shell, yet you're still yelling at people all day long. If only this guy could be cooked thoroughly. What are you doing? The egg yelled. Arbor hurriedly reached out to cover it. Suddenly, she realized that the egg couldn't cover its mouth at all. Can't you communicate telepathically? Are you trying to attract everyone here? Arbor scolded it in annoyance. An invisibility talisman appeared on her fingertips. The egg muttered in disdain, "And you're sneaking around. What are you afraid of? Go over now and ask that person for the black spirit jade. If he doesn't give it to you, I'll beat him up for you." Arbor, why does she want to beat me to death? Chapter 1280. Hurry and go. Don't be so long-winded. Arbor slapped an invisibility talisman on the egg. Preposterous. This lord has always been upright, and I've never done anything unscrupulous. Even if I'm robbing, I'll rob openly and attract the attention of the world. Arbor couldn't be bothered with it and threatened, "If you yell again and attract people here, I'll go back. Who cares about your black spirit jade?" The egg didn't utter a word. It couldn't be helped. People had to lower their heads under someone else's roof. Little Master was so unreliable. She had already picked it up for so long, but she didn't take the initiative to ask how to hatch it. It could only rely on itself. But speaking of which, although this master was deceitful, she was still obedient. She told her to come find the black spirit jade, so she followed. Why was it flying? The egg unexpectedly discovered that it had been kicked out by that deceitful master and landed steadily next to a table. It rolled past several people's legs without touching anyone. You bastard, kick me again. You know best what the black spirit jade looks like. Hurry and come back immediately after picking it up. My invisibility talisman is only an intermediate level talisman and can hide for about 15 minutes. Hurry up and don't let anyone discover you. After the two communicated mentally, the egg was so angry that it almost fainted. What the egg wanted the most right now was to kill this unreliable fellow. His little master actually told him, an egg, to steal the black spirit jade from the crowd. Was there anything more unreliable than this? If he had hands and feet right now, he would definitely kick her to the outer star domain. It simply made him speechless. Arbor secretly stuck an invisibility talisman on herself and leaned against the wall to look around. From her position, she could see Duanyu, Yin, and Situ E. She also saw Eldest Qin, Omega Kitoku, and many other patrician families' patriarchs and young masters. What a joke. With her cultivation realm, she naturally wouldn't foolishly stick an invisibility talisman on herself and walk in front of Yin, Duanyu, and the others. Because it was useless. She wouldn't foolishly run in and invite ridicule. She found a more secluded place where she peeped at her eggs. The egg really was exceptionally nimble. There were several times when it looked like someone's foot was about to step on its shell, but it would roll over. It continuously rolled past several tables and headed towards the table next to Yin's. The table next to Yin's was filled with the young masters of the 8 great clans. Arbor surreptitiously observed and discovered that the place that idiot was rolling over just so happened to be in Eldest Qin's direction. That black spirit jade couldn't be on Eldest Qin's body, right? It would be a miracle if an idiot could steal it. Arbor flicked the non-existent dust off his robe and calmly turned around to leave. You actually ran away? I feel that you are getting further and further away from me. Why are you going? Let me tell you, come back quickly. If you don't come back, I'm going to scream. I will scream with all my might. Damned woman, come back. Go ahead and shout. You shout. What's the use of shouting so loudly? You'll just be discovered and beaten up by a group. You're actually my master. The egg wailed loudly in her conscience, deeply hurt. Accompanied by the little fat squirrel's ha-ha-ha in the background, the egg jumped in anger and burrowed under the tablecloth. Black spirit jade, it saw the black spirit jade hanging on that man's waist. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.